Chapter 549. Nie Wushang rushed over like a gust of wind. Let's go. My master's here. The three people and one beast turned their heads at the same time. What? Nie Wushang said eagerly. My master's here. He's fighting with that late nascent soul devil cultivator. Mo Tiange was stunned. So the shaking here was caused by a late nascent soul cultivator? When nascent soul cultivators fought, the ground would shake in a small area. Not to mention they were the strongest among nascent soul cultivators. How could he come so fast? Jing Xingji asked. I don't know. Nie Wushang was flustered. Let's go. If we run into him, fellow Taoist Nie, calm down. Mo Tiange pressed her shoulder. You're no longer his little disciple, who can be beaten and scolded at will. What are you afraid of? Nie Wushang paused and took a deep breath. Soon her mood stabilized. Yes, I formed my nascent soul. Even if I'm not as strong as him, I'm an equal cultivator. He can't control my luck anymore. Her eyes were firm, and she clenched her fists. Let's go, she said. My master stayed in the late nascent soul devil cultivator for hundreds of years. His strength is incomparable to ordinary cultivators. It's better not to run into him. Mo Tiange agreed. They came to look for treasures, not to fight. Qin Shi and Jing Xingji also agreed. However, Jing Xingji looked at the white tiger with pity. What about this thing? You want to take the white tiger away? Nie Wushang was surprised. Jing Xingji looked at her strangely. Didn't you bring us here to take the white tiger away? Nie Wushang shook her head. This white tiger can't be taken away. Once it gets close, it'll be filled with killing intent and lose its mind. Otherwise, my master would have taken it away long ago. Mo Tiange was stunned. So this was what happened to Qin Shi and Jing Xingji just now. So this white tiger wasn't fated with them? Then why did you bring us here? Jing Xingji asked. Nie Wushang looked at him, as if she was looking at a monster. Isn't the white tiger's breath here a great fated chance? You have a big appetite. Jing Xingji was speechless. If it wasn't for their encounter in returning ruined sea, he would have thought it was a great fated chance for him to absorb a bit of white tiger's breath. However, Qin Shi obtaining the vermilion bird bow immediately raised his expectations. Let's go, Nie Wushang said. White tiger is right here. No one can take it away. If my master is free, we'll be out of luck. The three of them no longer hesitated. Qin Shi and Jing Xingji sheathed their swords. Mo Tiange dragged Fei back into her spiritual beast bag, then followed Nie Wushang towards the entrance of the sacrificial temple. As they flew, Mo Tiange asked, How's your cultivation technique? Nie Wushang sighed and shook her head. Back then, when my master came here, he only sat in meditation to absorb the devil qi. I thought there was something mysterious about the devil qi, but after trying for a long time, I couldn't find anything. Mo Tiange had long expected this, so she wasn't surprised. The prime fiend steel in this sacrificial temple must have been taken away. Master Songfeng probably came here because there was still pure primordial devil aura left here. Nie Wushang naturally wouldn't be able to get anything. How did you know it was your master? Jing Xingji asked. Nie Wushang rolled her eyes at him and said, I left devil aura on it, alright? She already said it just now, but she really didn't have the slightest memory. Jing Xingji shut his mouth, after being despised for no reason. How could your master come here so coincidentally? Qin Shi continued to ask. Nie Wushang was very polite to Qin Shi's question. I don't know. I also think it's very strange. Even if he noticed us as soon as we came in, it's impossible for him to come here so quickly. They'd only been here for half a day, and Lang Tu Mountain wasn't close, so it didn't make sense for Master Songfeng to come here so quickly. Mo Tiange turned around and asked, Do you think your master will definitely win? This question made Nie Wushang smile bitterly. Although I hate my master to the bone, I was taught by him, so I couldn't be clearer about his abilities. Even if that person is one of the three great devil monarchs in Yunzhong, I don't think he's my master's opponent. Or in other words, in my eyes, no one in the world is his opponent. Then you, Mo Tiange wanted to say, that wouldn't she have to hide from Master Songfeng for the rest of her life, until he passed away? But she thought that saying this might stab her sore spot, so she didn't say it. Nie Wushang guessed what she wanted to say, so she said sadly, "Fortunately, I'm younger than him. If he can't advance to the deification realm, he probably only has 300 or 400 years left to live. At that time, I'll be truly free." Emotienga was silent. She felt sad for Nie Wuxiang, but she also sighed for Master Song Feng. As it turned out, that insufferably arrogant Master Song Feng only had 300 or 400 years left to live. If he couldn't live forever, no matter how powerful he was, he would eventually become a pile of bones. As they talked, they dashed towards the entrance of the sacrificial temple. Before long, they returned to the karst cave. The commotion from the fight was getting louder and louder. The sacrificial temple was only shaking, but inside the karst cave, stones kept falling. Nie Wuxiang led them through many turns and detours in the karst cave. Noticing that Nie Wuxiang didn't take the original path, Emotienga asked, "Where are we going?" Nie Wuxiang answered, "If we leave along the original path, my master will definitely notice that there's another path here, but it's a bit more difficult to walk." "I see." The four of them didn't say anything else, and used their fleeing technique to leave quickly. Boom! A loud noise came from afar. The rock layer shook, and sand and stones fell with a rustle. Boom! Boom! The noise became louder. Presumably, the fight between the two nascent soul cultivators had reached its climax. Another rock fell. Nie Wuxiang, who was walking in the front, waved her sleeves and smashed the rock into powder without stopping for even a moment. Emotienga followed behind them, feeling something was wrong. It was said that nascent soul cultivators had the ability to move mountains and drain seas. However, this mountain was a small mountain, and the sea could only be an inland sea. The commotion now was too big. How could the great ancient sect choose this place, as their secret storehouse, be so fragile? The rustling sound became louder and louder. Nie Wuxiang, who was in the front, suddenly stopped stunned. "What's wrong?" Emotienga asked after she stopped. Nie Wuxiang's face was pale. She pointed ahead. "The road's broken." Not far ahead, the karst cave was cut in half, and the entrance was blocked by sand and stones. Qin released his divine sense. A moment later he said heavily, "Fengsha City is close to Shiling Mountain Range. The mountain must have collapsed just now. If we want to leave from here, we have to break through half of the mountain." It wasn't impossible to break through half of the mountain, but it would take more than a short time. Jing Xingji said, "How about we go back the way we came? Let's take advantage of the two of them fighting to get out." Nie Wuxiang shook her head. "If my master sees us, he'll definitely stop us." She smiled bitterly. "I betrayed him and know too many of his secrets, so he won't let me go." Emotienga had no doubt about this. Master Song Feng always sought revenge for the smallest grievance. Among his enemies, Qin wasn't a big deal, but Lord Taoist Jinghe only had a disagreement with him, and he still bore a grudge against him. Moreover, Nie Wuxiang stole many of his treasures and ran away. "Go." Nie Wuxiang turned her head and looked at the ground. "Without me, you still had a chance to escape." She lowered her head and didn't dare to look up. At this moment, Nie Wuxiang's heart was filled with indescribable sorrow. When she escaped from the celestial pole, she thought she would die in the South Sea. She abandoned herself to despair, and only hoped to taste freedom in her remaining years. Later, she met Emotienga and Yunzhong, strengthened her heart to seek the Tao, and finally became a normal person. If she could, she wouldn't ask for immortality or ascension. She just wanted to live happily like a normal person. But she knew her master wouldn't let her go. In her master's eyes, running away from him was equivalent to betraying him, not to mention stealing so many of his treasures. He would definitely catch her and punish her for her betrayal, just like her mother. In fact, she remembered what her mother was like. When she was born, her master was in closed-door meditation. When he came out, she was already 3 years old. At that time, she was ignorant and didn't know her happiness was so fake until one day, her master appeared and her mother suddenly disappeared. She remembered. She always remembered these things. After her master killed her mother, he didn't kill her. But he also didn't care about her. She didn't know what death was. And she certainly didn't know her mother would never come back. She cried for a whole day. Later, she couldn't stand the hunger anymore, so she looked for food herself. Many days later, her master appeared again. Seeing that she was still alive, he took her back to his cave. She didn't dare to recall these things, so she pretended she forgot. To her master, she was the evidence of his betrayal. She could only live humbly by his side, and let him take revenge on her mother for her betrayal. Suddenly she heard a sharp noise. She came back to her senses from her memories and turned around, only to see Jing Xingji cutting the stone wall with his sword. "What are you doing?" Jing Xingji glanced at her. "I'm running for my life, of course." Huh. She was stunned. Jing Xingji didn't look at her. He focused on cutting the stone wall and muttered, "I don't have the habit of sacrificing my companions." On the side, Qin Shi also summoned his 3-yong real fire sword. He smiled at her and said, "Fellow Taoist Nya, I'm someone your master must kill. He also won't let me off." Right after he said that, his 3-yong real fire sword also slashed at the stone wall. Emo Tiange was the only one left. She patted Nya Wushang's shoulder and went to help without saying anything. Nya Wushang stared at them in a daze. Gradually, the corners of her eyes became moist. "What are you waiting for? Come and help," Jing Xingji shouted. She smiled, wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and walked over. The 4 of them worked together, quickly cutting a hole in the stone wall. Not long after, a long passageway had been carved out. As they were fighting, Qin Shi suddenly stopped. "Something's wrong." Seeing his grave expression, Emo Tiange was puzzled. "What's wrong?" "Something's wrong," Qin Shi said. "There's a strange aura coming from here." Emo Tiange was stunned. She used the soul-refining art and spread her divine sense. There was indeed a strange aura that seemed to be coming from the storehouse. It was cold and gloomy. Just by touching it with divine sense, she felt goosebumps all over her body. This aura expanded very quickly. It was even faster than their escape technique, and it quickly spread over. The 4 people's expressions changed. Jing Xingji's expression changed greatly. Ghost Cultivator. Chapter 550. You've seen ghost cultivators? Qin Shi tilted his head and asked when he saw Jing Xingji calling out without hesitation. Jing Xingji nodded. "I saw them when I was wandering in Yunzhong." Emo Tiange remembered that ghost cultivators did exist in Yunzhong, but there were very few of them, and they lived in seclusion, so she hadn't seen them in Yunzhong. How could there be ghost cultivators here? Qin Shi felt more and more strange. It was one thing to put the secret storeroom and White Tiger sacrificial temple together, but how could there be ghost cultivators here? Was this a treasured land of feng shui, or a place of extreme evil? Nya Wushang was at a loss when she saw the 3 of them looking at her. I don't know. If she knew, she would have said it earlier and would have prepared for it. A cold and gloomy aura spread quickly. Emo Tiange reacted quickly and took out the Lotus Elemental Umbrella. The Lotus Elemental Umbrella had a restraining effect on Devil Aura, so it should also have some effect on the similarly negative Ghost Aura, right? The Lotus Elemental Umbrella floated in the air and emitted a spiritual light when it sensed the Ghost Aura. However, the Ghost Aura only stopped for a moment and continued spreading, and the Lotus Elemental Umbrella suddenly dimmed. Emo Tiange was shocked. The Lotus Elemental Umbrella was surrounded by a gloomy and deep black aura, silently but quickly swallowing the spiritual light of the Lotus Elemental Umbrella. She hurriedly took out a Qianquan bag and put the Lotus Elemental Umbrella back into the Qianquan ring to prevent the ghost aura from corroding other magic weapons. The Qianquan ring was a mustard seed space that could store Qianquan bags that used spatial formations. Qin Shi's 3-yong real fire sword emitted a sword light that circled around and turned into a light shield, blocking the ghost aura. After refining the vermilion bird bow, Qin Shi's real fire had completely transformed into the vermilion bird's flame. The vermilion bird was the symbol of light and had a natural restraining effect on ghosts and devils. I'll block the ghost aura. Hurry up, he said. Jing Xingji nodded and once again summoned his flying sword, which transformed into thousands of sword lights and hit the rock wall. Although they came from Fengsha City, they had walked underground for a long time and had long been out of Fengsha City's range. Judging from the surrounding rocks, they should be inside Shiling Mountain Range. The terrain of Shiling Mountain Range was complicated. Hopefully they didn't go in the wrong direction. Otherwise, they would have to spend a lot of effort to leave. Alas! Emotinga sighed inwardly. She had come here to look for Xiao Xilan's remains. Treasure hunting was just a convenience. Now that the situation had developed beyond her expectations, she could only come back later. Speaking of which, it was strange. All the formations and mechanisms here had been cracked, so this should be Xiao Xilan's destination. Why couldn't he find any clues? Could it be that she didn't die here, but died outside after successfully obtaining the treasure? This was not impossible. If they found the treasure here, and then turned hostile after they left, then the trail would be broken. How troublesome. She frowned. It wouldn't be easy for him to come here again. To them, ghost cultivators were completely foreign to them. If they were to really fight against them, they had no confidence at all. Hurry up. Qin Shi, who was resisting the ghost aura, shouted. Ghost cultivators are coming out. After the ghost qi filled the air, the ghost cultivator finally appeared. That powerful and sinister aura caused one's hair to stand on end. It was the same chilling aura, but the ghost qi was completely different from the devil qi. The devil qi was dark and terrifying, but it still belonged to the human world. The ghost qi, on the other hand, made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They were at a loss and lost the will to live. Emotinga's divine sense also discovered the ghost cultivator. To be exact, it was a mass of condensed ghost qi. The ghost cultivator had no body, so even if it formed a ghost infant, it was still just a mass of aura. This ghost cultivator's aura was very powerful. It shouldn't be inferior to the nascent soul realm. As soon as it appeared, it went to where Master Song Feng and Devil Monarch Night Frost were. The four of them heaved sighs of relief. It was good that the target wasn't them. But in the next moment, the four of them were stunned. After this ghost cultivator appeared, many other auras gushed out. They were all nascent soul ghost cultivators. 1, 2, 3, until there were dozens of them. Some of these ghost cultivators went to where Master Song Feng was, while others followed the auras of living people and floated towards them. Jing Xingji paused for a moment. Then he controlled his flying sword and crazily attacked the rock wall. They had no experience in dealing with ghost cultivators. With so many nascent soul ghost cultivators, if they fought, it would bode ill rather than well for them. However, the speed of these ghost cultivators was beyond imagination. In the blink of an eye, their ghost qi pressed down on them. Buzz! The protective shield Qin Shi propped up dimmed. He made a hand seal, and his dantian lit up. The vermilion bird's flame hidden in his yang spiritual bead gushed out and poured into the protective shield. In a hurry, Emotinga turned her head to take a look and found that the ghost cultivators had already arrived. Before she saw ghost cultivators, she thought those with this kind of evil aura would be some kind of monster with a green face and fangs. But now that she saw them, she realized that ghost cultivators looked similar to humans. It was just that their bodies were transparent. For ghost cultivators, although they were a mass of aura, they still retained their human consciousness. Therefore, whether it was a ghost with a little bit of consciousness or a great cultivator who had formed a ghost infant, all of them would maintain their human appearance. Only those wandering souls whose consciousness had been erased would have no appearance at all. Who are you? Why are you invading our ghost city? After watching for a while, the leading ghost cultivator actually spoke. Seeing that they didn't intend to attack immediately, Qin Shi said, "What ghost city? We came to look for treasures. We don't know what ghost city it is." The leading ghost cultivator was wearing scholarly clothes and a scholar's hat. He held a scroll in his hand, looking gentle and elegant. He was probably a scholar when he was alive. He looked at the four of them and said, "Nonsense. Since you didn't know this was a ghost city, how could you coincidentally destroy its foundation?" The foundation of a ghost city? The four of them were bewildered. Qin Shi said, "We didn't destroy anything. Those two people have nothing to do with us." The place where these ghost cultivators appeared was next to the storehouse. Presumably, it was destroyed during the fight between Master Song Feng and Devil Monarch Night Frost. The scholar swung his sleeve and said, "Since you have nothing to do with us, what are you doing now?" The four of them were dumbfounded. Soon after, They realized that this ghost cultivator was talking about how they punched through the rock wall. Nie Wushang said, "Could it be that this West Mountain Range is your ghost city? There's a storehouse here, but it belongs to us human cultivators." "That storehouse belongs to human cultivators, but it's not yours," the scholar ghost cultivator said indifferently. "When we came here, the storehouse was already abandoned. In the past, when you human cultivators came here, you just took things and left, and we didn't care. But today, you actually destroyed the ghost city. We can't ignore this." From what the ghost cultivator said, their ghost city had always been here. In the past, when Master Song Feng came here, they all knew about it. In that case, these ghost cultivators weren't ruthless people. Maybe they could talk to them. This fellow Taoist. Qin Shi hesitated for a moment, but still chose to call them fellow Taoist. "We didn't know this was your resting place. Now that we know, we won't destroy it again." "Humph." The ghost cultivator stared at them expressionlessly. "You said that because you want to leave, right?" Qin Shi said calmly. "We were going to leave anyway. We don't want to have a conflict with you." He paused for a moment, then added, "Since you can become a ghost cultivator, you must have been a cultivator when you were alive. You should know that nascent soul cultivators aren't easy to kill. If we fight, neither of us will benefit, so why should we create more trouble?" The ghost cultivator didn't refuse immediately. Seemingly moved by Qin Shi's words, he turned his head and seemed to discuss it with his companions. A moment later, the scholar ghost cultivator sent out a wisp of ghost aura from his hand and flew back the way he came. "Is he sending a message?" That was Emotienga's guess. After sending out this wisp of ghost aura, the dozen or so nascent soul ghost cultivators in front of Emotienga stopped talking and just stood there quietly. This scene was too strange. Emotienga felt it was absurd. Not to mention that the appearance of these ghost cultivators was strange, but the origin of these ghost cultivators was already a problem. For so many years, no one had ever heard of the existence of a ghost city in the celestial pole. Where did this ghost city come from? Were they originally here or did they move here? According to ancient records, there were ghost cultivators in the early years of the celestial pole, but they disappeared later. Could it be that these ghost cultivators didn't disappear, but hid here and built a ghost city? In addition, were the nascent soul ghost cultivators so worthless? There were less than 100 nascent soul cultivators in the entire celestial pole, and they were scattered all over the place. Great sects that occupied large spirit veins usually only had nascent soul cultivators. Why did a ghost city of ghost cultivators have so many nascent soul ghost cultivators? Moreover, it was impossible for all the nascent soul ghost cultivators to come out in full force to deal with the few of them. In that case, didn't that mean there were 50 or 60 nascent soul ghost cultivators in this ghost city? Emotienga was terrified when she thought of this. In that case, the power of this ghost city was too terrifying. If ghost cultivators came out, wouldn't the Celestial Pole Immortal Alliance, which was fighting on two fronts, be in more trouble? While she was lost in her thoughts, Qin Shi pondered for a moment, then asked the ghost cultivator, "Fellow Taoist, how should I address you?" The scholar ghost cultivator's face was pale. He said expressionlessly, "My name is Wen Si." "So it's fellow Taoist Wen Si." Qin Shi cupped his hands and said, "My surname is Qin, and my Taoist name is Shoujing. I'm a cultivator of Xianqing School." Upon hearing the word Xianqing School, the ghost cultivator's eyes moved, and he said stiffly, "So it's fellow Taoist from Xianqing School." Qin Shi was curious. "Fellow Taoist, do you know about Xianqing School?" "We're all people," Wen Si said blankly. "Xianqing School has been established for more than 100,000 years. Of course we know about it." "So you're all cultivators of the Celestial Pole?" Qin Shi asked tentatively. Wen Si's gray eyes flashed. "What do you want to say?" Qin Shi said, "Fellow Taoist Wen Si, rumor has it that ghost cultivators have long disappeared from the Celestial Pole. As it turns out, you moved here and established a ghost city. You don't need to probe." Although Wen Si's expression was stiff, his mind was sharp. "We won't tell you about Ghost City's origin." Qin Shi paused for a moment, then said, "In that case, fellow Taoist Wen Si, may I ask how Ghost City plans to deal with us?" You previously let the cultivators who came here go. So presumably, you don't have any hostility towards human cultivators, right? When C's gray eyes moved, he reached out to catch the ghost aura flying towards him and said, "You'll find out soon enough." Right after he said that, the ghost aura dispersed from his hand. His gaze shifted, and he raised his scroll. "The ghost venerable has ordered us to kill them all." Chapter 551. After being accused of destroying the ghost city by the ghost cultivators, Emotienga's group of 3 stopped punching through the mountain wall to avoid angering them. There were more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators in front of them. No matter how arrogant they were, they wouldn't think they could fight against them with just 4 people. Besides, this was ghost cultivators' territory, so it was better to be polite. They didn't expect these ghost cultivators to fight without saying anything. As soon as Wen Si finished speaking, more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators swarmed them. Among these ghost cultivators, Wen Si was in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, and the others were in the early stage. If they were human cultivators, they wouldn't be afraid. Any one of the 4 had the strength to fight more than one. However, these were ghost cultivators, and they had no experience in dealing with ghost cultivators. Boom! The small cave couldn't withstand the spiritual pressure of the nascent soul cultivators. With a loud bang, stones flew everywhere. Before they started fighting, there was an empty space of several hundred feet around them. Seeing this, Qin withdrew his sword light. There was only a small cave entrance between them. He could occupy the cave entrance. And even if there were more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators, only 2 or 3 of them could fight. But now, the surrounding area was empty, enough to encircle them like an iron bucket. Although these ghost cultivators had stiff expressions and didn't look like living creatures, they weren't stupid at all. Emotienga took out a puppet and let it control the Fuxing sword. This puppet was wearing a magic weapon Taoist robe and holding the Fuxing sword, which was enough to fight against an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. A ghost cultivator rushed towards her. Emotienga waved her heaven and earth fan, and countless flowers and plants flew out of the fan, entangling the ghost cultivator. The ghost cultivator held a white bone stick and waved it without any fancy moves, knocking all the flowers and plants down. Then, the white bone stick chopped towards her. Emotienga's expression froze. In terms of cultivation level, she was similar to this ghost cultivator, but the ghost aura seemed to have a restraining effect on her magic weapon. The flowers and plants created by the heaven and earth fan lost control as soon as they touched the ghost aura. She didn't have much time to think. The white bone stick whizzed towards her. She raised her hand, and a huge rock appeared out of thin air, pressing heavily on the bone stick. The heaven and earth fan could create everything in the world. She also had 5 spiritual roots, so she could easily control anything. Just as she suppressed the ghost cultivator, the ghost aura transformed into needles and flew towards her. Emotienga raised her hand, causing a ball of golden lightning to appear in her palm. It rapidly transformed into a dazzling golden net that people couldn't look directly at. She waved her hand, and the lightning net met the ghost needles. Chi, chi, swoosh. The sound continued. As soon as the ghost needle hit the lightning net, it immediately disappeared. Lightning was the most positive thing in the world, and it was the nemesis of all ghosts and demons. Wherever the net was, the ghost chi would disappear without a trace. Seeing this, the ghost cultivators were in an uproar. Among the 4 of them, Qin vermilion bird flames were the hardest to deal with. Even the 4 nascent soul ghost cultivators, led by Wen Si, couldn't trap him. Jing Xingji was not someone to be trifled with. Sword cultivators pursued lethality to the extreme. Moreover, Jing Xingji had a ruthless personality. Once he drew his sword, he dared to slash at anything that stood in his way. The ghostly cultivators surrounding him were immediately suppressed by him. Nie Wushang wasn't bad either. The primordial devil great technique she cultivated was an extremely overbearing cultivation technique, which just happened to be able to contend with ghost aura. If it wasn't because she had formed her nascent soul not too long ago, and wasn't familiar with her divine ability, this ghost aura would have been devoured by her devil aura instead. Not only did Emotienga have a nascent soul puppet, but she also had a metal lightning restraining evil. None of the four of them was easy to deal with. These ghost cultivators originally thought they would be able to deal with the four of them very quickly, but they didn't expect they would fall into a stalemate instead. If they didn't outnumber them, some of them would have been killed as soon as the fight started. Upon seeing this, Wen-Si shouted, the ghost cultivators all retreated and stood in their respective positions. Wen-Si stared at the four of them and said gloomily, you're all very capable. It seems I can only let you have a taste of the 10,000 ghost soul-devouring formation. Once she finished speaking, she raised the scroll in her hand and shouted, 10,000 ghosts gather. The ghost cultivators all raised the ghost weapons in their hands. Countless wisps of ghost aura shot out from the ghost weapons and rushed towards the scroll in Wen-Si's hand. Upon seeing this, Qin took a step forward. The three young real fire sword light merged into one and pounced on Wen-Si. However, he was still one step too late. The moment the sword light pounced on Wen-Si, the surroundings suddenly darkened, and all the light disappeared. Woo! Muffled ghost cries rang out. The three young real fire sword light stopped in midair, losing its target. Qin turned his head to look around, and found himself trapped in darkness. Not only could he not see the surrounding scenery, but even Mo Tianga's group of three also disappeared. Hoo-hoo. Yeah, woo-woo. The ghostly wails rang out incessantly. Mo Tianga listened attentively, but she couldn't hear where they came from. She was surrounded by boundless darkness and emptiness, as if she was in nothingness. This kind of darkness wasn't so dark that she couldn't see her own fingers in front of her. Rather, as far as her eyes could see, the void was endless. No matter how far she walked, she couldn't see the end. Being in this darkness, it was as if even light was swallowed up. Behind her, a female ghost with loose hair suddenly appeared. Her long fingers silently stabbed at her. Chi. The moment the ghost's claw touched her, a layer of golden light emerged on Mo Tianga's body. Ah! The female ghost screamed, and was quickly swallowed by the golden lightning. The moment the female ghost disappeared, a headless person slowly walked towards her. To say it walked wasn't correct. To be exact, it floated towards her. Behind the headless man was a bloody, skinless ghost. Mo Tianga felt a chill down her spine. She knew these ghosts were created by the 10,000 ghosts devouring formation, and weren't her opponents. She had seen many bloody scenes, so she wasn't timid. However, looking at these horrible ghosts, she still couldn't help feeling disgusted. More and more ghosts floated towards her. She clenched her teeth, restrained the feeling of her hair standing on end, and focused on dealing with these ghosts. The cultivation level of these ghosts was only equivalent to the foundation building realm. Before they could touch her, they were hit by the golden lightning and instantly turned into ashes. However, the ghosts were endless, so she couldn't find time to break the formation. What was worse was that the cultivation level of these ghosts was getting higher and higher. Generally speaking, this kind of large formation that needed many people to activate could be broken, as long as there was enough strength. However, Mo Tianga didn't think the four of them would have enough strength to break the formation if they fought separately. What should she do? At the same time, outside the storeroom. Old witch, you didn't come to the celestial pole to look for treasures just to die here, did you? Master Song Feng, who was hidden in the black clouds, glanced at the cold woman in purple. What do you want to say? Demon Monarch Knight Frost wasn't angry at being called that. His face didn't even twitch, and he just stared coldly at the mini-ghost cultivators in front of him. On the other hand, the maid named Hong Xiao had a look of anger on her face. Hee, Master Song Feng said. I haven't had a rival in the celestial pole for many years, so I've been very lonely. It'd be bad if I beat you all at once. Let's save it for later. Demon Monarch Knight Frost glanced at him with a faint smile. I didn't come to the celestial pole to fight. You humph, Master Song Feng said coldly. Do you think you can walk out of here alone? Your Excellency, Demon Monarch Knight Frost cast him a sidelong glance. I'm not from the celestial pole, so you don't need to put on the airs of the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole, right? The black cloud kept expanding and contracting. Obviously, Master Song Feng was very angry, But there was nothing he could do. Although he was the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole, this girl wasn't weak either. She was also in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, and her divine power was only slightly weaker than his. If he really wanted to get rid of her, he wouldn't be able to do it in a short amount of time. Fortunately, Demon Monarch Knight Frost didn't target him anymore. He said faintly, "Fellow Taoist, we have to go out first. You can stay if you want." After he said that, the purple satin brought out Frost and Devil Aura, and rushed toward one of the ghost cultivators surrounding them. As soon as the ghost cultivator came into contact with the ice-cold Devil Aura, he was immediately frozen. Demon Monarch Knight Frost waved his purple satin, and the ghost cultivator shattered with a loud bang. However, ghost cultivators didn't have bodies, so the power of this ice-cold Devil Aura was limited against them. The purple satin was pulled back, and the ghost aura shook for a moment before it gathered again. Humph. Master Songfeng didn't show weakness. The black cloud turned into a vortex, and suddenly sucked in all the weaker ghost cultivators. The nascent soul ghost cultivator was furious. He controlled his ghost weapon, and attacked the black cloud. Emotinga didn't stop attacking. Every time a ghost appeared, she would wave her heaven and earth fan. In an instant, the ghosts fell one after another. An hour had passed, and these ghosts swarmed over like a tide. She hadn't stopped to rest, so she couldn't free her hands to crack the formation. She was secretly anxious. Although the spiritual aura a nascent soul cultivator's dantian could hold was very large, it still couldn't withstand this kind of continuous fighting. In particular, the ghost cultivator's base camp was right here. If a more powerful ghost cultivator came, wouldn't they all be stewed? Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly heard a phoenix cry. A red light rose, and a vermilion bird made of flames appeared in the darkness, instantly tearing it apart. Under the vermilion bird, Emotinga saw Qinshi. She was delighted. She waved her golden lightning to stop the ghosts, and rushed toward Qinshi. "Senior Martial Brother." Qinshi looked back with a smile, and put away the vermilion bird bow. He was still controlling the 3 young real fire sword to kill the ghosts that kept rushing over. The darkness was slowly swallowed by the vermilion bird's flames, and light appeared again. Jing Xingji and Nie Wushang ran toward them, and the 4 of them reunited. "I'm so disgusted." Jing Xingji looked at these ghosts with disgust. Could it be that when people become ghosts, they lose their sense of beauty? They were either missing arms or legs or covered in blood. Could they really be disgusted to death? Although he said that, judging from his appearance, he still had strength to spare. Seeing that the 10,000 ghosts devouring formation was cracked, Wen Si shouted, "Lay the formation again." How could Mo Tienga and the others give them this chance? Sword light and lightning struck Wen Si at the same time. "What should we do?" After disrupting their formation, Mo Tienga said, "We can't go on like this. They have a lot of people, and this is the belly of the mountain. We can't kill them, and we can't escape either. We'll be worn down by them. If they were outside, it would be easy for them to escape, but nascent soul cultivators weren't easy to stop, and they were in the belly of the mountain." "I have a way," Nie Wushang said. "Go back. We'll go back to the temple. They definitely can't get in." Right. Mo Tienga recalled that when they were in the Sea of Returning Ruins, those devils couldn't enter the Vermilion Bird main hall. Presumably White Tiger was the same. Qinshi made a prompt decision. "Let's go." Chapter 552. Shooting an arrow from the Vermilion Bird bow required a lot of Vermilion Bird's flames, but Qinshi could only mobilize a very small part of the Vermilion Bird's flames in the Yang spiritual bead, so he could only shoot 1 arrow at most. Now that the arrow had been shot, he didn't have enough spiritual aura, so he couldn't exert his full strength. If other powerful ghost cultivators came, the 4 of them would be in danger. That being the case, they might as well rest in the White Tiger sacrificial temple for a while, and then plan their retreat. Having made up her mind, Mo Tienga ordered the puppet to lead the way. Although the puppet didn't have the secret techniques and natal magic weapons of nascent soul cultivators, it wasn't afraid of injuries, and control techniques had no effect on it. Now that it had the Fuxing sword, it wasn't much weaker. Most importantly, even if the puppet was damaged, It would be fine after a little repair. Unlike real cultivators who had to recuperate for 30 to 50 years, if they were seriously injured in the nascent soul realm. As for the Fuxing sword, after the devil aura and impurities were removed by the spirit-quenching water, it was definitely a high-grade magic weapon. Before Fu Yaozi left, he also gave Mo Tiange the incantation to refine the Fuxing sword. If she could refine it completely, it would also be a sharp killing weapon. Letting the puppet use the Fuxing sword was only a temporary measure. The Fuxing sword was a flying sword with thunder attributes, so it had to be matched with thunder techniques to fully display its combat power. Lifeless objects like dolls, which had no dantian and no divine sense, were most suitable for pure force treasures. However, these kinds of treasures were only suitable for martial cultivators. There were very few martial cultivators, and even fewer of them were of high grade. Wanting to find a powerful pure force treasure was even harder than buying a top-grade treasure. For this matter, they could only participate in more nascent soul cultivators' trade fairs in the future and exchange treasures. The puppet led the way. Qin Shi followed closely behind, Mo Tiange and Nie Wushang in the middle, and Jing Xingji brought up the rear. After the three of them left, Jing Xingji looked at the ghost cultivators with a smirk. He took something out of his Qianquan ring and threw it at them. Puff! The thing turned into a very faint smoke in the air. The smoke seemed to have a mind of its own. It divided into more than a dozen strands and entangled the ghost cultivators. The ghost cultivators were caught off guard. Before they could do anything, several loud booms rang out in thunder, and lightning intertwined, fixing the ghost cultivators in place. Let's go! Seeing that the ghost cultivators had fallen for the trick, Jing Xingji hurried to catch up with them. Mo Tiange looked back in astonishment. She knew that there was something called the Heavenly Lightning Seed, which was sealed with the soul of a demonic beast. Once it was thrown out, it would be extremely powerful. However, this kind of thing wasn't easy to make, and after one reached core formation, there were ways to break it, so it wasn't common. The thing that Jing Xingji had thrown out was very similar to the Heavenly Lightning Seed, but it was much more brilliant. Not only did it use smoke to obstruct one's vision, but it could also automatically close in. More importantly, it had the effect of freezing one's body. During a battle, if one could toss out one of these, one would be caught off guard and easily fall into a trap. Later, he would ask him where this thing came from. The ghost cultivator was locked in place for about 10 breaths of time. For nascent soul cultivators, this amount of time was more than enough. Even if they couldn't fly at top speed in the belly of the mountain, the four of them could still use their escape techniques to leave the ghost cultivator far behind. A moment later, the ghostly cultivators caught up to him. They had no physical form and were extremely fast. Even the most skilled human cultivators would not be able to catch up to them. Upon seeing this, Jing Xingji took out another thing from his universe ring and tossed it out. The ghostly cultivators stopped and each threw out a ghost tool, assuming a defensive stance. In the end, the thing just fell down lightly and didn't explode at all. The ghostly cultivators were stunned. Wen Si was furious. She raised the scroll in her hand, and black characters flew out from between the pages, pressing down on them. Jing Xingji swung his flying sword, and countless sword lights formed a protective shield, blocking these black characters. This went on for about 7 minutes. The four of them took turns to attack, and they finally saw the entrance to the sacrificial temple. The closer they got to the sacrificial temple, the more obvious the white tiger's breath became. The speed of the ghostly cultivators gradually slowed down, and some of them even looked perplexed and uneasy. Upon seeing this, the four of them knew they had made the right bet. Sure enough, they didn't dare to enter the white tiger's sacrificial temple. As they went deeper and deeper, the ghostly cultivators finally stopped. A ghostly cultivator asked fearfully, "Elder One, do we still want to go in?" Wen Si glared at the four of them angrily. In the end, she clenched her teeth and said, "Go back and report to the Ghost Lord." But, another ghostly cultivator said, trembling with fear, "If we didn't kill them, will the Ghost Lord punish us?" Wen Si's gloomy eyes turned to him, and she said coldly, "You still hope that the Ghost Lord won't pursue this matter?" The dozen or so ghostly cultivators lowered their heads in silence. When C said, "There's the white tiger's breath here. If we enter, we'll be burned." Think about it yourselves, the pain of being burned or the ghost lord's punishment. Which one is more unbearable? Upon hearing Wen Si's words, the ghostly cultivators didn't say anything, and fear appeared on some of their faces. There was no such thing as spirit roots for ghostly cultivators to cultivate, and they had very few bottlenecks, because they only had the power of the soul. The price they had to pay was that they were much weaker than humans and demonic beasts. Once their souls were burned, that terrifying feeling was unbearable even if they had already formed ghost infants. Moreover, if their souls were burned, their cultivation would also be greatly damaged, and it was even possible for them to regress. However, accepting the ghost lord's punishment was also very painful. After a long time, Wen Si sighed softly, and sorrow appeared on her pale face. Let's go back. Even if we endure the pain of being burned, we might not be able to kill them. We might as well accept the ghost lord's punishment. Finally, a ghostly cultivator answered, "Yes, elder." They're all gone, Jing Xingji said. The four of them had arrived at the square where the white tiger was. The white tiger's breath was very strong here, so they didn't dare to get too close, and sat close to the stone wall to adjust their breaths. Qin Shi opened his eyes and said, "They really are afraid of the white tiger's breath. They don't dare to come in, and we also don't dare to go out." Jing Xingji sighed. "Do we have to do closed-door meditation here for dozens of years, and absorb the white tiger's breath before we can go out?" Qin Shi shook his head and said, "Why do we have to do that? Although we can't go out, we can call for help. Do you want to send a message to your ancestor?" Qin Shi smiled and glanced at him. "Are you very jealous?" Jing Xingji rolled his eyes. "Yes, I'm so jealous that you have someone to call for help. Not to mention that he had already left Gujian sect. Even when he was still in Gujian sect, he still relied on himself for everything." Despite his resentment, Jing Xingji's expression didn't show any self-pity. Obviously, his state of mind had been seen through. Qin Shi said sternly, "There are so many ghost cultivators here that we can't treat them lightly. Even if we go out, we have to inform the Immortal Alliance to make preparations in case ghost cultivators come out, and the celestial pole will be in chaos." "You mean?" Jing Xingji seemed to be thinking about something. Although the Immortal Alliance is fighting on both sides, it's still possible to transfer a dozen or so nascent soul cultivators. This was a big move, Jing Xingji exclaimed in his heart. Transferring a dozen or so nascent soul cultivators for help was something he didn't dare to think about in the past. It was good enough that no one hit him when he was down. However, this was also a coincidence. Now that there was the Celestial Pole Immortal Alliance, they could gather so many nascent soul cultivators. A dozen or so. Do you think it's enough? Jing Xingji was worried about a lot of ghost cultivators. If a nascent soul cultivator leads them, it should be enough, Qin Shi said. Besides, there are tools to deal with ghosts, but they weren't valued because there were no ghost cultivators in the Celestial Pole before. Now that they know there are ghost cultivators here, it'll be much easier. Thinking that those ghost cultivators weren't very strong, Jing Xingji nodded. It seems you're going to ask your ancestor to come in person. Qin Shi looked at the white tiger in the middle of the square and said meaningfully, "We can't let others take advantage of it." Jing Xingji understood what he meant and chuckled. "Before that, let's refine part of the white tiger's breath first." Once other nascent soul cultivators arrived, the white tiger sacrificial temple would no longer be a secret. At that time, this sacrificial temple would belong to the Immortal Alliance, and it wouldn't be easy for them to absorb the white tiger's breath. Jing Xingji nodded. The white tiger's breath was a great fated chance, so how could they give it to others? Of course, they had to take advantage of it first. In any case, those ghost cultivators wouldn't dare to come in. However, when he thought of meeting those nascent soul cultivators soon, his face became gloomy. If there were people from Gujian sect among them. "What's wrong with you?" Mo Tiange asked from the side. Jing Xingji turned to look, but he was talking to Nie Wushang. Nie Wushang's eyes were closed, and her face was pale. Upon hearing Mo Tiange's voice, Nie Wuxiang opened her eyes and said, "This white tiger's breath." Mo Tiange was stunned. She suddenly remembered that the divine beast's breath could restrain devil aura. And Nie Wuxiang cultivated devil techniques. "I'll go outside." Nie Wuxiang stood up. "If I stay here, I'll be injured even if I'm not injured." "Wait." Mo Tiange stopped her. "If the white tiger's breath fades, it won't be able to restrain those ghost cultivators. Besides, your master is outside. What will you do if you run into him alone?" Nie Wuxiang smiled bitterly. "What else can I do? If I stay here, I won't be able to resist the white tiger's breath." Mo Tiange thought for a moment, then took out a set of formation discs. "This spirit-concealing formation of mine isn't an ordinary one. It should be able to isolate the white tiger's breath." Nie Wuxiang was skeptical. "The white tiger's breath is so overbearing. Won't it be fine if I try?" Mo Tiange smiled, stood up, took a few steps, laid the formation discs one by one, and embedded spirit stones. "Okay, go in." Nie Wuxiang walked into the formation and sat cross-legged. "How is it?" Nie Wuxiang sensed it for a while, then said happily, "It's really isolated. This way, you won't have to leave." "N." Nie Wuxiang looked at her gratefully. Mo Tiange smiled, then went back and sat cross-legged. "She trusts you that much?" Qin Shi's voice came into her ears. Mo Tiange turned around and saw him looking at her. Just now, when Mo Tiange laid the formation, Nie Wuxiang walked in without hesitation, not even testing it. Entering other people's formation at will was a cultivator's biggest taboo. If she wasn't careful, her life might be in other people's hands. How could a person like Nie Wuxiang not understand this common sense? "I can also trust her like that," Mo Tiange replied. "Do you still remember that we used to be friends with life and death?" In Yunzhong, Nie Wuxiang was tricked into the lost cave by Mei Feng to be fed to primordial devil, and Nie Wuxiang put her life in her hands. Mo Tiange didn't think she could fake it at that time. "All right." Qin Shi nodded. "I trust you, so I also trust her." Mo Tiange smiled. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly frowned, feeling something was wrong. Qin Shi's expression changed, and he said, "Someone's coming." Chapter 553. A few auras suddenly appeared, moving along the stone path towards them at high speed. The four people stood up at the same time, each casting their own defensive means. There were also four people coming, and two of them were very powerful. They must be Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost's group. Qin Shi winked at Mo Tiange and said, "Run if you can't do it." Mo Tiange nodded. If Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost were still enemies, they still had a chance to survive. If the four of them joined forces, the late nascent stage cultivators wouldn't be afraid. However, if Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost joined forces, the two late nascent stage cultivators could only run. However, she thought the former was very likely. With Master Song Feng's personality, he would never share treasures with others. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group already knew about the existence of this storehouse, so Master Song Feng wouldn't let them go. Now that they were fleeing together, it was probably because of the situation. As she thought about this, the people had already rushed through the stone door. Sure enough, it was Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost's group. As soon as he rushed in and saw them, Master Song Feng stopped, and the dark cloud surged. Mo Tiange turned her head and saw Nie Wuxiang leaning against the wall with a pale face and clenched fists. She sighed inwardly. She still underestimated Master Song Feng's influence on Nie Wuxiang. With her current appearance, it was more likely that she would stretch her neck and be killed. *tch. A cold voice came from the dark clouds. Nie Wuxiang's face became even paler. She clenched her teeth and stared at Master Song Feng in front of her. "You've got guts," Master Song Feng said word by word, carrying a bone-chilling killing intent. Mo Tiange stared at Nie Wuxiang. Whether she could withstand Master Song Feng's power or not was the last obstacle for her to get a new life. No one could help her with this. She could only rely on herself. Nie Wuxiang bit her lip and breathed heavily. All these years, she was very free and happy after escaping from her master's side. She thought she was stronger than before, and was no longer the little disciple who trembled and didn't dare to breathe heavily in front of her master. Until now she knew she was wrong. Master. When she heard his voice, she couldn't restrain the fear in her heart. This fear was deeply planted in her heart from the first time she saw him. Even though she was no longer the helpless child who had lost her mother, even though she had formed her nascent soul and become a top cultivator, she still trembled when she saw him. Master. She heard her own hoarse voice. Even to this day, she could not help but call him Master. Tch, come here and die. Master Songfeng's hoarse voice was full of hatred. Nie Wushang bit her lower lip so hard that it almost bled. Bitch. She remembered that when she was young, her master often looked at her and scolded her. Bitch. She knew that her master wasn't scolding her, but her mother. But today, this word was finally used on her. Bitch. She recalled the year when she was 3 years old. She recalled being brought back to the cave abode by her master, and being beaten and scolded day and night. She recalled being thrown into the prime devil pool often, suffering so much pain that she wished she were dead. Nie Wushang's gaze went blank for a while before it finally fixed. She took a deep breath, raised her head and said slowly, Master, I'm not a bitch and neither was my mother. Her voice was calm and tranquil. There was neither anger nor fear in it. Although she called him Master, her voice was flat, devoid of respect or fear. The black cloud paused. All of a sudden, the black cloud dispersed as if it was blown away by the wind, revealing Master Songfeng's true appearance. A wizened middle-aged man who looked like human skin draped over a skeleton. Mo Tiange suddenly recalled her master's evaluation of Master Songfeng. He was neither human nor ghost, neither Dao nor Dao, neither devil nor devil. He was simply a monster. The Master Songfeng in front of her was indeed like that. If he was a human, his facial features were lifeless. But if he was a ghost, they would fluctuate. With a hoarse voice he asked word by word. What did you say? Master. Nie Wushang stared at him without fear. I said, I'm not a bitch, and neither was my mother. You. Master Songfeng took a step forward, and stretched out his skeleton-like hand, as if he wanted to grab Nie Wushang. However, with a soft sound, an invisible sword aura made a circle in the air. With a puchi, it pierced the ground between the two of them and cut the flagstone. Master Songfeng raised his black hole-like eyes, and stared at a place not far from Nie Wushang. Under his terrifying gaze, Jing Xingji smiled and raised the sword in his hand. Sorry, my hand was wrong. At such a close distance, even an aura-refining cultivator couldn't possibly make a mistake. A black light flashed in Master Songfeng's eyes. Jing Xingji, however, showed no fear. As if he didn't see anything, he continued to admire his flying sword. Master Songfeng's wizened eyes moved, and he said slowly, So it's you juniors. Qin Shi smiled as if he was seeing an old friend. He cupped his hands and said, It's been years. Senior Songfeng, how have you been? Mo Tiange then greeted him. The last time I saw Senior was on Demonic Mountain. In the blink of an eye, it's been 100 years. You. Master Songfeng was a bit speechless. If he remembered correctly, he once did something that disgusted them. Although he didn't see it happen, with the arrangements at that time, there shouldn't be any accidents. So why did they? Master Songfeng looked at Qin Shi and suddenly smiled gloomily. Qin Shoujing, are you satisfied with the gift Demonic Mountain gave you? Upon hearing this, Qin Shi and Mo Tiange looked at each other and smiled. Master Songfeng was testing them. It seemed that the matter back then was still his proud handiwork. Master. The one who interrupted was Nie Wushang. She said faintly, Disciple forgot to tell you that I ruined that matter. Master Songfeng suddenly turned his head and stared at her. After a long time he shouted, Tch die. The black cloud swept over, and instantly appeared in front of Nie Wushang. Nie Wushang raised her arm, and a mass of primordial devil aura appeared in front of her. It turned into the shape of a shield and forcibly took this blow. Pooh! Nie Wushang vomited a mouthful of black blood, and fell to the ground. But to everyone's surprise, Nie Wushang just wiped the corner of her mouth and still stood up. Master Songfeng attacked out of anger, and didn't hold back his strength at all. It was a full blow from a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Logically speaking, a new nascent soul cultivator like Nie Wushang, who had advanced to the nascent soul realm, for only a few years, shouldn't be able to withstand it. Fortunately, there was White Tiger's breath here to restrain Master Songfeng's devil art. Although his cultivation level was high, and he could move as usual, the power of his attack was reduced. Nie Wushang was inside the spirit-concealing formation, but her strength wasn't affected. Moreover, the power of that blow was also blocked by the formation, so the injury she suffered was neither light nor heavy. Master Song Feng became even angrier when he saw that he didn't kill her with one blow. He wanted to attack again, but a puppet suddenly flashed over and stood in front of him. Then Emotienga said slowly, "Senior Song Feng, aren't you too impatient?" Master Song Feng's withered eyes moved back and forth in his eye sockets. He looked at Nie Wushang, then looked at Emotienga. Finally, he sneered at Nie Wushang. "B*TCH, you've really become capable. You actually pulled someone to stand up for you." Looking at the four people in front of him, Master Song Feng felt like he was filled with rage. He hated this B*TCH. When she followed him, she pretended to be well-behaved and didn't dare to say a single word. But in the end, she paid lip service to him, and even stole his most important Qianquan bag, while he was recuperating in the primordial devil pool. How could he not hate her? He hated her so much that he wanted to grind her bones and scatter her ashes. Because of her escape, he lost a lot of magic weapons. For the past 100 years, he didn't dare to take a single step into Kunwu, lest his old enemies took advantage of his misfortune. It had been 100 years. He hid in Langtu Mountain for 100 years, and all of this was because of her. For the few hundred years he had left in his lifespan, how precious was 100 years. But what about this B*TCH? She took his Qianquan bag and lived freely for 100 years. She even formed her nascent soul, thinking about how her cultivation level and happy times were all exchanged for his 100 years of being a good-for-nothing. He controlled his hatred, especially when she returned to the celestial pole, and even brought others to his treasury to take treasures. That B*TCH was just like her mother. But fortunately, he hadn't lost his mind. Now that this B*TCH had a helper, she wasn't someone he could casually kill. These juniors had all formed their nascent souls, especially Qin Shoujing, who had advanced to the middle stage. The four of them had joined forces, but his strength was suppressed by White Tiger's breath. There was also that old witch from Yunzhong eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. If he wasn't careful and ended up being besieged by them, the losses would outweigh the gains. Looking at Nie Wushang, Master Song Feng calmed down again and said coldly, "What? Weren't you afraid of becoming a devil cultivator? You still dared to practice primordial devil great technique?" Nie Wushang lowered her eyes and said faintly, "Whether I'm a Dao or a devil, it's all in my heart. What does it matter whether I practice a devil technique or not?" Her words made Master Song Feng furious again. She stole his Qianquan bag and took away his primordial devil great technique. But she actually dared to talk about her heart with him? Black aura surged, and he once again returned to his black cloud appearance to cover up his anger. "What a good heart," Master Song Feng said coldly. "B*TCH, have you been happy these 100 years?" "I'm not a B*TCH. As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Wushang raised her head. This time, there was arrogance and anger in her eyes. "What right do you have to say I'm a B*TCH, Master?" Before Master Song Feng could answer, Nie Wushang had already taken a step forward and stood ramrod straight. "I'm a human with flesh and blood, thoughts and feelings. I wasn't born to be your slave, and I don't owe you anything." Looking at the black cloud, she said word by word, "You have no right to belittle me." This B*TCH was just a casual rebuke from Master Song Feng. She took it so seriously just for the last sentence. "I came to this world only because of the kindness of my parents. I'm also a precious life, not a dispensable existence. My existence is meaningful for me, and doesn't depend on you. You have no right to belittle me." "Master," Nie Wushang said slowly, "I used to be afraid of you. When I was preparing to return to the celestial pole, I thought I'd never be able to face you in this lifetime. But now, I want to tell you that from now on, my life has nothing to do with you anymore. My life only belongs to me." Chapter 554. She used to hate her own existence before she left her master. Back then, in order to hide from her master, her mother hid in the mountains of the secular world. After her master killed her mother, he didn't care about her and left her to fend for herself. If her master didn't come back, she would either become a savage or die. Fortunately, her master came back. After she was brought back to Langtu Mountain, her master threw her to his disciple, who was also her senior brother. Her senior brother's personality was the same as her master's: temperamental, cruel, and merciless. Fortunately, her mother never offended him. He was just indifferent and didn't mistreat her. At that time, her senior brother was in a hurry to break through to core formation and didn't care about her at all. Other than ordering the villagers nearby to bring her food and water, he didn't care about her anymore. When she was a little older, her senior brother began to ask her to do things, such as taking care of herbs and cleaning the cave. In order to make it easier for her to do things, he taught her cultivation and how to read. This was the reason why she was a martial cultivator. If not for what happened later, her senior brother didn't treat her badly, and she could even be said to be indebted to him. Her master would occasionally come out of the seclusion room, but when he saw her, he never had a good expression. Sometimes he would just call her a bitch, and sometimes he would throw her into the Essence Devil pool, making her beg for death. Every time her master threw her into the Essence Devil pool and watched her struggle, he would yell at her, call her mother a bitch, or call her a bastard. At that time, she hated herself. Why did she have to exist? If not for her, her mother wouldn't have to escape and wouldn't have died. If she didn't exist, she wouldn't have to live such a torturous life. Gradually she grew up. For more than 10 years, she had been submissive and finally won the trust of her master and senior brother, who handed over all the affairs of the cave to her. Her master often went into seclusion, and her senior brother was busy with core formation. Those were the happiest days of her life. She often went down the mountain to see those ordinary, Shirong people living ordinary lives. She hoped that one day, she could also live such a life, even if she lost her cultivation and became immortal. Unfortunately, she didn't live happily for long. Her senior brother failed to form his core and was in a bad mood. If she didn't do a good job, she would be scolded and beaten. Her senior brother was the successor that her master found after much effort. To help him cultivate, her master would even catch mortals into the Essence Devil pool to create Essence Devils for her senior brother to swallow. Someone like her master would actually be so obedient to a person, and all she got was scolding and beating. In these depressing days, cultivation became her only hobby. Only when she cultivated could she get rid of the depression in her heart. Only when her cultivation improved could she prove to her master that she had some value. Master began to send her out to do things. When she first killed, her hands she couldn't throw, but she gradually got used to get. 4-2. She pretended that she had no mind, that she was a tool, to make herself feel better. Senior Marshal Brother has been stuck at the peak of Foundation establishment for a long time, and has never been able to form his core. Senior Marshal Brother once hoped that his master could help him advance, but his master scolded him harshly. If he needed someone else's help during the core formation stage, how could he form his nascent soul and become a great cultivator in the future? Master was and to hien, and in. Recalling the past, Nie Wushang clenched her fists, her nails digging deep into her palms. Her master used primordial devil aura to open her meridians and poured it into her body to help her senior brother. Therefore, Master used the primordial devil chi to open up her meridians and infused the primordial devil chi into her body to help senior brother. Because of the pain of Essence Devil entering her body, but also because of despair. It was not only because of the pain of the primordial devil entering his body, but also because of the despair he felt against his will. To escape this fate, she even thought of self-mutilation. The funny thing was, she didn't succeed in the end, because her senior brother lost his breath while cultivating. She escaped the fate of being plucked, but she understood that she was only a tool in her master and senior brother's eyes. She was jealous of Emo Tienga, because she also had a master and senior brother, but they had completely different orders. Failing to pluck, her senior brother went to Kunwa to look for a chance to form his corps. But he never came back and died in the hands of Xianqing School's Qin Jinghe's disciple. Her master had old grudges against Qin Jinghe, so he was furious when he heard this. But she was secretly happy. Without her senior brother, there was one less person to beat and scold her. Her master spent a lot of time in closed-door meditation, so her life was much better. That was indeed the case. After her senior brother died, her master wholeheartedly took revenge and always practiced secret techniques, so he didn't have much time to torture her. Because he lost his disciple, her master finally regarded her as his disciple. Although he often beat and scolded her, he was no longer as ruthless as before. Several decades passed. Qin Shoujing, who killed her senior brother, advanced to the core formation realm and became famous in the celestial pole. Xianqing School had its sixth nascent soul cultivator and became famous. Her master finally couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to take revenge. She met Mo Tiange at Lord Dao Xuanin's nascent soul ceremony. Before that, she was already used to this kind of life and never thought about betraying her master. Her experience at Xianqing School made her envious and jealous of female cultivators from prestigious cultivation groups. More than 50 years later, she successfully formed her gold core and followed her master to Demonic Mountain. The short time they spent together finally made her decide to betray and escape. She also wanted this kind of life, to be free and to walk under the sun openly. Then, she stole her master's Qianquan bag while he was healing and escaped from the celestial pole. This was the boldest decision she made in her life. If she succeeded, she would be free. If she failed, she would die without a corpse. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Do you think your life is your own just because you escaped once? A voice came from the black cloud. Nie Wushang stood there with unprecedented firmness in her eyes. My life has always been my own. I didn't understand it before. Master Song Feng sneered. He was obviously angry. After laughing enough, he said in a hoarse voice, "Your life is your own, so hand over the things that don't belong to you. I've raised you for so many years. Which part of your body doesn't belong to me? Your cultivation level, your cultivation technique, and your Qianquan bag." Nie Wushang bit her lip and lowered her head. Master Song Feng continued. "Fine, your life is your own. You ran away, but why did you steal my Qianquan bag? Why did you bring people to Fengsha City? *tch, don't speak so righteously. Which part of what you did was honorable?" Nie Wushang still didn't answer. She didn't think there was anything wrong with what she did, but she couldn't answer her master's question. After a moment of silence, they suddenly heard a chuckle with a hint of mockery. Jing Xingji tapped the sword in his hand in boredom and said, "This is really funny. You're only allowed to kill other people's mothers and treat other people like slaves for more than 100 years. But you're not allowed to steal your own things. Oh my, this kind of person thinks he's a god." "Yes." Mo Tiange stared at the surging black clouds, then sneered and said, "If you ask me, how can a mere Qianquan bag compensate for killing my mother and working hard for more than 100 years? You're lucky you didn't kill someone and pay with your life." "Exactly." Jing Xingji clicked his tongue and said, "I hate people who like to humiliate others the most and don't allow others to resist. If it was a little girl, I could understand. Which girl hasn't dreamed of being a princess? But if it's an old man, especially an old man with one foot in the coffin, The two of them teamed up and ridiculed each other to the extreme, which immediately angered Master Song Feng. The black cloud he had transformed into kept surging. Finally, after Jing Xingji finished speaking, the black cloud pulled out a long line and shot towards Mo Tiange. Mo Tiange waved the heaven and earth fan, and a blue shadow suddenly jumped out. It opened its mouth and swallowed the line shot by Master Song Feng. Master Song Feng was stunned. After the blue shadow swallowed his black cloud, it circled around and returned to the heaven and earth fan. Azure Dragon? He was confused, thinking he was mistaken. How could there be an Azure Dragon? Demon Monarch Night Frost and the others who were watching the show were also shocked. As soon as they came in, Master Song Feng had a conflict with the four of them. The three of them simply watched the show and didn't intend to intervene. It would be best if the two of them were to fight. Demon Monarch Knight Frost stared at Mo Tiange holding the fan, lost in thought. Seeing this, Tianxian asked in a low voice, Shuang, what's wrong? Demon Monarch Knight Frost looked at Mo Tiange and raised his chin. I've seen her. Her. Tianxian looked at Mo Tiange in confusion. As he looked at her, he also became confused. Oh, it's her. This time, it was Demon Monarch Knight Frost who was confused. Do you know her? Tianxian said. Do you remember that when I formed my gold core, I was tricked into the maze cave by Mei Feng, the Lord of Fallen Stars City? Demon Monarch Knight Frost nodded and suddenly remembered something. She was also among them. She and Jianxin were also survivors from that time. As soon as they came in, they didn't see Jianxin in black robe, but Jing Xingji and Nie Wushang. They immediately understood that these two people were in disguise. However, they couldn't help but feel confused after listening to their conversation. What was the background of these two people? It sounded like they were from the Celestial Pole. But how could they know so much about Yunzhong and the auction? Oh right. Yi Shuang remembered. Wasn't Mei Feng killed by fellow Taoist Qin? At that time, Mei Feng wanted to attack little friend Mo. It seemed that it was because of this matter. Shuang, where did you see her? Tianxian asked when she didn't speak. Returning ruins see, Demon Monarch Knight Frost said. You haven't seen her, but you must have heard of her. The matter of returning ruins, wasn't a secret to the high-level cultivators in Yunzhong. Tianxian thought for a moment and remembered, then exclaimed in shock. It's her. Yes. Devil Monarch Knight Frost nodded slowly and stared at Mo Tiange. Little friend Mo isn't simple. As a core formation cultivator, she stirred up a mess in Yunzhong, formed her nascent soul, and returned to the Celestial Pole. Humph. Demon Monarch Knight Frost snorted coldly. She was a cultivator in Yunzhong. Now that the one-leaf island in Yunzhong no longer existed, she was also affected, and the main culprit was this woman in front of her. How could she have a good impression of Mo Tiange? However, she couldn't touch her this time. Not to mention she had several nascent soul companions, but this was the Celestial Pole, so she couldn't act rashly. Little friend Mo should be a disciple of a large sect or clan in the Celestial Pole. If she was touched and attracted some extraordinary people, it would be bad. If there was a chance later, she'd just have to make her suffer. That was what Demon Monarch Knight Frost thought. Chapter 555. The fiery red sword light hovered above the four people's heads for a while before it finally returned to his arm. Qinshi stared at Master Song Feng and said faintly, Senior Song Feng, you can't use your full strength here. He didn't attack, but he didn't hide his intention to show off. Master Song Feng didn't say anything or attack. He was irritable, but he wasn't stupid. He had enmity with so many nascent soul cultivators in the Celestial Pole. But he could live well until now because he was strong but also because he was smart enough. He knew when he could take advantage of others, and when he should stop. White Tiger's breath restrained his devil aura. He didn't dare to come here until he entered the nascent soul realm, after cultivating primordial devil great technique, and he could move normally only after he advanced to the middle stage. Here, he could only use 70% of his strength at most. Those juniors had all formed their nascent souls, especially Qin Shoujing, who had advanced to the middle stage. Besides, there was also the old witch from Yunzhong eyeing them covetously. If they fought, wouldn't that be exactly what she wanted? With that thought in mind, Master Song Feng said, Humph. When this is over, I'll deal with you. He then found a corner to rest and recuperate. Seeing this, the four people secretly sighed in relief. Although each of them had formed their nascent souls, they were still afraid of facing the number one cultivator in the Celestial Pole, who had accumulated power for hundreds of years. If they really fought, they might not necessarily lose. At the very least, Qinshi felt that if he could use the Vermilion Bird Bow, he would be seriously injured even if he could withstand it. Seeing this, Mo Tiange secretly passed a bottle of medicinal pills to Nie Wushang. Quickly heal yourself. Nie Wushang forced a smile and pushed it back. No need. Healing medicinal pills had a certain effect on devil cultivators, But primordial devil aura wasn't the same. For her, even if she only had one breath left, she could still recover. Just as she was about to take a good rest, she suddenly saw someone coming from another corner. Right now there were 3 parties in the sacrificial temple. One party was the 4 of them, one party was Master Songfeng, and the last party was Devil Monarch Night Frost, and the 2 devil cultivators. In terms of strength, the 3 parties were about the same, forming a balanced situation where no one could attack at will. The 4 of them couldn't reconcile with Master Songfeng. As for Devil Monarch Night Frost, although they didn't have any grudges, they didn't dare to trust him. At this moment, the one walking towards them was the maid Hong Xiao. 10 feet away from them, Hong Xiao stopped and bowed. This servant is Hong Xiao. Under the orders of my city lord, I invite everyone here for a chat. With Night Frost Demon Monarch here, Hong Xiao restrained her emotions and politely invited him. She glanced in that direction. Demon Monarch Night Frost was still expressionless, but he gave him a slight nod. Before he could say anything, Jing Xingji interrupted. If you want to chat, just come over. Why do you want us to go over? Hong Xiao lowered her eyes and said, My city lord is only here for one item. As for the other items, she will not fight with you. Everyone please be at ease. Right after she finished speaking, Emo Tiange said, Miss Hong Xiao, you almost took my life the first time we met. Hearing this, Hong Xiao smiled embarrassedly, not knowing what to say. She was Devil Monarch Night Frost's maid, but in fact, she was equivalent to his disciple. There were many people in the city lord's mansion who took care of those mundane matters, so she didn't need to do them. She only needed to deal with some things that were inconvenient for Devil Monarch Night Frost, and these things were usually paved by someone else. On the other side, Devil Monarch Night Frost finally came. Unlike progenitor Miao Ying, this late-stage nascent soul great cultivator still maintained the appearance of a 17 or 18-year-old girl. She was young and beautiful. If she hit her cultivation level and appeared in front of others, she would probably be regarded as a junior who had just stepped on the path to immortality. Fellow Taoist Emo, Devil Monarch Night Frost's gaze fell on Emo Tiange first. I didn't expect you to form your nascent soul after we parted at the Sea of Returning Ruins. Emo Tiange smiled slightly. Nia Wushang told her that her deeds had spread throughout Yunzhong, so Devil Monarch Night Frost naturally knew she had formed her nascent soul. However, since Devil Monarch Night Frost was so polite to her as a late-stage nascent soul great cultivator, she had to give him some face. Emo Tiange stood up and saluted him. Senior Night Frost, long time no see. You're still as elegant as ever. She's just an old witch. What's there to talk about elegant? Devil Monarch Night Frost said faintly, then looked at Qin Shi. Fellow Taoist Qin. Qin Shi returned the salute. Fellow Taoist Night Frost. Devil Monarch Night Frost glanced at Jing Xingji and Nia Wushang, then asked, How should I address you too? Jing Xingji chuckled. I'm Jing Xingji. Greetings, fellow Taoist Night Frost. Seeing his frivolous attitude, Tianxian snorted coldly. Devil Monarch Night Frost turned a blind eye to him and looked at Nia Wushang. Nia Wushang sat cross-legged inside the spirit-concealing formation and said, I'm Nia Wushang. I'm injured. Please forgive me, fellow Taoist. If a late-stage nascent soul cultivator took the initiative to talk to an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, who wouldn't be flattered? Nia Wushang's behavior could be said to be rude. Devil Monarch Night Frost didn't mind. He nodded lightly, then pointed to the 2 people beside him. This is my disciple Tianxian, and my maid Hong Xiao. After greeting them, Devil Monarch Night Frost said, Fellow Taoists, you don't mind us coming uninvited, do you? Qin Shi smiled and said, How could I dare? Fellow Taoist, if you have any advice, please say it directly. Night Frost Demon Monarch glanced at Master Song Feng in the other corner and said, I don't dare to give advice. I just want to make it clear to fellow Taoists that we didn't come here with the intention of becoming enemies with you. Is that so? Emo Tiange smiled and glanced at Tianxian and Hong Xiao. Devil Monarch Night Frost understood her meaning, but he said, Fellow Taoists have some disagreements with that fellow Taoist Song Feng. Presumably, you don't want to have a conflict with us, right? Emo Tiange withdrew her gaze and didn't say anything. Devil Monarch Night Frost was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, so he didn't lower himself to explain to them. Instead, he spoke in a domineering manner. Emotinga knew he was right, but if they showed weakness easily, they would be at a disadvantage if they continued talking. Qinshi chuckled and said, "What fellow Taoist said is reasonable. It seems you also think so?" Devil Monarch Night Frost paused and looked at them meaningfully. "Yes, we didn't come here from thousands of miles away to fight." Qinshi nodded and said, "Since that's the case, fellow Taoist, you might as well speak your mind." Devil Monarch Night Frost said, "We came here for one thing. As long as fellow Taoists don't fight with us, we won't be your enemy." Qinshi had heard about this from Hong Xiao, so he smiled. "If it has nothing to do with us, we naturally won't fight for it." He didn't say anything definite. There were some things they could give up, but there were some things they couldn't. "It should have nothing to do with you." Yi Shuang's lips curved slightly, revealing a smile. She was a very beautiful woman. Although she was a devil cultivator, she had a cold demeanor like snow. In addition, Devil Monarch Night Frost paused and looked at Master Song Feng. "Fellow Taoists, what do you think of those ghost cultivators?" Emotinga's gaze also turned to Master Song Feng. They didn't put up a soundproof barrier when they talked here, so Master Song Feng must have heard them clearly. However, he didn't move at all. He just turned into a black cloud and curled up in a corner to recuperate. Qinshi pondered for a moment, then asked, "Excuse me, how many ghost cultivators besieged you? And what are their cultivation levels?" Devil Monarch Night Frost glanced at Tian Xian and said, "More than 20 people, including 2 late-stage nascent soul ghost cultivators." His face was expressionless, but his pale blue face seemed to have a glimmer of light. Emotinga frowned. "In that case, didn't they dispatch 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators?" Hearing this number, Jing Xingji also frowned. "What's the origin of this ghost city? Why are there so many ghost cultivators hiding here?" 40 nascent soul cultivators was a shocking number in Yunzhong. There were only about 100 nascent soul cultivators in the entire Yunzhong. This ghost city had mobilized 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators just to kill them. How many nascent soul ghost cultivators were there in total? At least half of them, right? "Don't tell me your celestial pole doesn't know there's a ghost city here?" Tian Xian said. His tone was full of doubt and contempt, which made Emotinga feel very unhappy. Although Emotinga didn't like his tone, she still said calmly, "The celestial pole is different from Yunzhong. Almost all the cultivators in the celestial pole are concentrated in Kunwu. There are neither spiritual lands nor spiritual objects in the westernmost desert, so naturally, no cultivators set foot there." Tian Xian snorted and didn't say anything else. Qinshi went on to say, 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators, and there might be other ghost cultivators in the ghost city. If they block the exit, we only have 8 people. We can't fight them at all. Fellow Taoist Qin is right. Devil Monarch Night Frost glanced at Master Song Feng again. "In this case, we can only be trapped here if we go our own way." Qinshi smiled. "Fellow Taoist Night Frost, you mean? Naturally, we'll leave together." The black cloud finally moved, and Master Song Feng's voice came from inside. "Old witch, you don't need to test me. I certainly don't want to be trapped here." Devil Monarch Night Frost raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "I'm not talking to you." "Humph." Master Song Feng snorted. "Since that's the case, don't blame me for not helping." Devil Monarch Night Frost didn't care at all. If he didn't help, they couldn't get out. It would be strange if he didn't help. Qinshi glanced at Master Song Feng and said, "We can't defeat the 40 ghost cultivators in the ghost city, let alone all the ghost cultivators in the ghost city. How can we get out?" Devil Monarch Night Frost said, "Where there's a will, there's a way. Whether we can get out or not is still uncertain." Qinshi exchanged glances with Emotinga and said, "Fellow Taoist, do you have an idea?" "Yes." Devil Monarch Night Frost turned to look at Hong Xiao. "This maid of mine has a strange secret technique. She can go and explore." Emotinga was stunned and asked, "You can enter the ghost city?" After receiving Devil Monarch Night Frost's signal, Hong Xiao said, "Yes, I have a secret technique that allows my primordial spirit to leave its body and sneak into the ghost city." Primordial spirit leaving its body? Emo Tienga and the others were astonished. Even Nie Wushang, who was regulating her breath and healing her injuries, opened her eyes. 4 nascent soul cultivators like them. Their primordial spirits already possessed power, but their primordial spirits were still far from being able to leave their bodies. Even if they reached the deification realm, their primordial spirits still couldn't leave their bodies. This kind of secret technique was unheard of. Emo Tienga was vigilant. This Hong Zhao's strength was average, but she had this kind of secret technique, so she couldn't be underestimated. Chapter 556. As expected, Hong Zhao's primordial spirit left her body, under the protection of Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tian Xian. It would probably take several days for her to wake up. Emo Tienga looked at the 3 of them thoughtfully. Among the 4 of them, Nie Wushang's injuries weren't light, and Qin Shi consumed a lot of vermilion bird's flames to break the 10,000 ghost soul devouring formation. One of them was healing, and the other was adjusting his breath. Jing Xingji and Emo Tienga only consumed some spiritual aura, so they recovered quickly. Seeing her like this, Jing Xingji came over and asked, "What are you looking at?" Emo Tienga rubbed her chin and said, "Why do I feel like there's something strange about that master and disciple?" Jing Xingji followed her gaze. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tian Xian were talking about something, but they couldn't hear it because of the soundproof barrier. However, both of them noticed the subtle feeling in their expressions. Jing Xingji chuckled. Interesting. Interesting. What's interesting? Emo Tienga ignored his frivolous tone. I've heard that master and disciple eventually became husband and wife. Cultivators like us never cared about these so-called seniority. However, I've never seen a nascent soul female cultivator have anything to do with her disciple, let alone a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Cultivation talent had nothing to do with gender, but because men were superior to women in the secular world, women had fewer chances to become cultivators than men, so there were fewer female cultivators than male cultivators. Because most women weren't good at fights of magical powers, there were fewer female cultivators in the end than male cultivators. Therefore, every female cultivator, who became a nascent soul cultivator, was an elite among elites. Take Hong Xiao for example. She wasn't good enough for them, but she was stronger than most ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Therefore, female cultivators who cultivated to the nascent soul realm rarely chose a man with a lower cultivation level as their partner because of their excellence, unless they became Dao companions when they were young. There was an example of this in the Celestial Pole. The Luan Feng immortal couple from the Bian sect became Dao companions when they were in the foundation building realm. Now both of them were in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, but Ding Wuan's cultivation level was higher than Feng Zhao's. But this master and disciple pair obviously couldn't be. They had been to Yunzhong and knew Demon Monarch Night Frost had become a late-stage nascent soul cultivator several hundred years ago, and Tian Xian was her disciple. As he spoke excitedly, Jing Xingji waved his hand and created a soundproof barrier. He chuckled and said, "Do you recognize it?" "Recognize what?" Emo Tienga was bewildered. Jing Xingji glanced over and said, "We've met that Tian Xian before." "Us?" Emo Tienga was dumbfounded. Although they'd known each other for more than 100 years, she and Jing Xingji had only traveled together a few times. The first time was on Demonic Mountain. The second time was to save Tang Shen, followed by Yunzhong, where he changed his name to Jinxin twice. And now, she recalled the things that they had experienced together, and a familiar figure slowly emerged from the depths of her memory. It's him. Her experience in the maze cave left a deep impression on Emo Tienga. That was the first time she faced a nascent soul cultivator and encountered a crisis where she almost died. Afterward, when she was recuperating, she missed the sinking of the South Pole Island. It was also because of that experience that she and Nie Wushang could have such a heart-to-heart relationship. However, she didn't see the scene of Tian Xian hiding behind and taking advantage of the situation, so she didn't have a deep impression of him as Jing Xingji did. After thinking for a while, she finally remembered. As she recalled this matter, Emo Tienga looked pensive. In that case, his cultivation level was still in the core formation realm 100 years ago. Yes, even if he just formed his nascent soul, this kind of cultivation speed is absolutely top-notch. Besides, his divine abilities are mysterious. Have you fought with him? Emotinga asked. Just one move, Jing Xingji said. That sword move of his was beyond Tianxian's expectations, and Tianxian's strength was also beyond his expectations. Qinshi said he was very strong, and Jing Xingji also said he wasn't weak. It seemed that this Tianxian was definitely not a nobody following behind Demon Monarch Night Frost. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group wasn't simple. As the two of them spoke, Qinshi stopped adjusting his breath and opened his eyes. Seeing him staring at him, Jing Xingji hastily stepped back. I didn't do anything. Qinshi ignored him and said to Emotinga, let's go out for a while. Emotinga didn't understand. Qinshi didn't explain. He dusted off his sleeves and stood up. Seeing this, Emotinga followed him. As soon as he moved, the two people on Demon Monarch Night Frost's side looked at him. Master Song Feng was in the dark clouds, so Emotinga didn't know whether he was also paying attention to this side or not. Qinshi glanced at them and said faintly, let's go outside. He didn't explain much. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian saw that it was the two of them. Jing Xingji and Nie Wushang didn't follow them, and Qinshi's natural attitude made them think the couple wanted to be alone for a while. So they saluted from a distance and didn't say anything. Stepping out of the stone gate, the two of them walked silently until they reached White Tiger Hall. Seeing that Qinshi stopped, Emotinga asked, Senior Marshal Brother, do you have something to say? Qinshi nodded, cast a soundproof barrier, and asked, do you think Demon Monarch Night Frost's words are reliable? The four of them hadn't discussed this matter. In any case, they were trapped here and couldn't move. If Demon Monarch Night Frost had a way, they'd just let them do it. Emotinga said, I'm just curious. They put in so much effort just for one thing. Is it a treasure like the vermilion bird bow? Something that could make a late-stage nascent soul cultivator rush here, from thousands of miles away, was certainly not an ordinary thing. None of the things they got from the storehouse could meet such a condition, unless it was the whole storehouse. But they clearly said they only needed one thing. Maybe, Qinshi said. I'm guessing it might be related to the deification realm. Emotinga looked at him. Qinshi couldn't help but smile when he saw her sparkling eyes. He stroked her head and said, if it's related to the deification realm, we have to get involved. Master is already in the late stage. Although they had deification pills, they hadn't heard of some of the materials needed for this miraculous pill, and they didn't know where to get them. Lord Taoist Jinghe advanced to the late stage not long ago, but he still had 500 or 600 years left in his life. If he couldn't break through by then, Emotinga planned to offer her longevity pills. With a lifespan of 1,000 years, it was very possible for him to advance to the deification realm. Even if Lord Taoist Jinghe couldn't use it, they would have to face the deification realm sooner or later. With their lifespan and cultivation speed, their chances of reaching the peak stage of the nascent soul realm were very high. Qinshi pondered for a while, then removed the soundproof cover. He said, let's go out and take a look. The two of them gradually walked away. The white tiger's breath became fainter, and the ghost aura became denser and denser. How could the ghost aura left by 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators be ordinary? Even if they all returned to Ghost City, this ghost aura wouldn't disperse for a while. When the two of them walked to the damaged stone wall, they saw a faint shadow. That powerful momentum undoubtedly belonged to nascent soul ghost cultivators. Upon seeing them, the nascent soul ghost cultivators became restless, but they didn't dare to come closer. They naturally didn't think these ghost cultivators were afraid of them. Ghost cultivators were afraid of the white tiger's breath. The white tiger's breath here came from a real divine beast, the white tiger. Its power wasn't something the vermilion bird's flame Qin she had subdued could compare to. They hid here for a whole day, but these nascent soul ghost cultivators didn't dare to enter, which showed its power. The two of them retreated a little. Qinshi took out a talisman from his Qingquan ring and drew some talismans in the air. Thinking up to this point, she sighed inwardly. In that case, before Master Song Feng passed away, Nie Wuxiang had to avoid him. She actually hoped that Nie Wuxiang could catch up and kill Master Song Feng. But the possibility was too low. When Master Song Feng was in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, Nie Wuxiang hadn't been born yet. In the few hundred years he had left, it would be too difficult for Nie Wuxiang to reach his current realm. Let me out. Fei Fei's impatient voice rang in her ears. Did you hear me? Mo Tiange had no choice but to open the spiritual beast bag, and Fei Fei immediately scuttled out. Isn't it good for you to cultivate in the spiritual beast bag? Fei Fei sniffed and was overjoyed. Hey, you want me to return empty-handed after entering the White Tiger sacrificial temple? Mo Tiange shook her head and said, Don't be delusional. Even we can't get close to that white tiger. At most, you can absorb some of its breath. Ha! Fei Fei jumped onto her shoulder and said proudly, That's you guys, not me. Mo Tiange was surprised. You have a way. Fei Fei shook its head and said proudly, Have you forgotten my talent? Chapter 557. Fei Fei could coexist peacefully with all demonic beasts, and could make people clear-minded, which happened to be the nemesis of White Tiger's breath. Moreover, Fei Fei belonged to the metal element, which was compatible with White Tiger's breath. Mo Tiange said curiously, What a coincidence! Is this White Tiger's fate prepared for you? Fei Fei proudly raised its head, but Mo Tiange slapped it down. You're so lazy. Walk by yourself. Fei Fei whimpered and wanted to protest, but seeing that Mo Tiange ignored it and walked away, it could only obediently put away its tail and follow them. Mo Tiange shook her head as she walked. I'm afraid Jing Xingji will be disappointed. If Fei Fei was right, this white tiger's fated chance would really belong to it. Qin Shi smiled and said, He can be said to be unlucky, but in fact, he also had countless fated chances to reach this step. He can be said to be lucky, but he always misses big fated chances. For example, the Yang spiritual bead, and the vermilion bird bow. However, fated chances couldn't be helped by others. If it didn't belong to Jing Xingji, they couldn't do anything. The two people and the beast soon returned. Jing Xingji saw that they didn't look the same, so he was suspicious for a while before he continued to concentrate on cultivating. He wasn't injured, so what he was doing now was absorbing White Tiger's breath. Every time Mo Tiange stopped cultivating, she would see him sitting cross-legged on the ground with his still water sword floating in front of him. From time to time, spots of light flashed on the sword. It was the White Tiger's breath being absorbed into the sword and transforming its sword aura. Qin Shi once told her about Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji's sword was the nameless ancient sword he obtained together with him. At that time, Jing Xingji was still the outstanding disciple of venerable swordsman Zhongguang of Gujin sect. He was proud of his life, and didn't want to be like other sword cultivators, who casually refined a natal flying sword, and then slowly improved it. Jing Xingji was overjoyed when he obtained this nameless ancient sword, so he refined it into his natal flying sword. The sword art he obtained with this sword was called the secular sword art. It had a total of 3 killing moves, named gain and loss, sorrow and joy, and withering and flourishing. The power of these 3 moves was earth-shattering. Of course, the so-called earth-shattering was after the great accomplishment. The great accomplishment in ancient times was not the nascent soul of today. Even if Jing Xingji had formed the nascent soul, he could only be called a minor accomplishment. Seeing how focused Jing Xingji was on absorbing the White Tiger's breath, Mo Tiange prayed in her heart. She hoped seeing the White Tiger this time would also bring him some fated chances, instead of watching helplessly as another great fated chance slipped away. As for herself, she didn't have any metal-attributed techniques. It would be best if she had some, but if she didn't, she wouldn't force it. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Hong Xiao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Sky Xian hurried forward. Mo Tiange and the other 3 also stopped cultivating and stared at them. City Lord, speak slowly. Night Frost Demon Monarch pressed down on her shoulder. Hong Xiao stabilized her breathing and slowly said, I pretended to be a remnant soul and floated into Ghost City. this ghost city was extremely large. According to Hong Xiao, it was several times larger than the largest city in Yunzhong. In the ghost city, there were unconscious remnant souls, spirit ghosts who only retained their memories, and nascent soul ghost cultivators, who had formed ghost infants. There was a rumor in the secular world that in the human world, there was an unknown ghost city called Fengdu. After people died, their souls would be captured and brought to Fengdu to be judged by a ghost emperor before they would be reincarnated. For cultivators like them, this was merely a legend. They traveled all over the world, but they'd never seen a ghost city. It was already pretty good if they could meet a few souls whose memories hadn't been erased. This ghost city, on the other hand, gathered many kinds of ghosts. It was very similar to the legendary ghost city Fengdu. The highest ruler of the ghost city was called the Ghost Venerable. No one could accurately tell what his cultivation level was. Under the Ghost Venerable, there were 68 nascent soul ghost emperors who ruled the ghost city. There were even hundreds of millions of ghosts in the ghost city. The news that Hong Xiao brought back was sensational. When she finished speaking, the 8 people present were all silent. Qin Shi was even more certain that his decision was correct. If he didn't inform the Immortal Alliance about such a ghost city, how could they escape? At the same time, the atmosphere in White Tiger's sacrificial temple became unstable. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group no longer brought up the matter of cooperation. Emotinga's group of 4 also remained silent. Master Song Feng didn't move from beginning to end. Half a month later, Hong Zhao's injuries were healed, and Demon Monarch Night Frost's group began to move. Fellow Taoists. Before leaving, Demon Monarch Night Frost came to them. The 4 people stood up to greet him. Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression was cold, but her words were polite. The 3 of us are determined to fight our way out of the encirclement. Are you willing to come with us? Qin Shi said without hesitation. There are so many ghost cultivators outside. The 4 of us cherish our lives, so we won't go with you. Demon Monarch Night Frost nodded. She knew they wouldn't attack together, so she just mentioned it casually. Fellow Taoist Night Frost, Jing Xingji said with a smile. There are so many nascent soul ghost cultivators outside. Isn't it too risky for the 3 of you to go out like this? Demon Monarch Night Frost paused. A ripple appeared on her frosty face, but she immediately calmed down. The 3 of us are devil cultivators. The longer we stay here, the more our cultivation levels will be consumed. It's better to fight while our strength hasn't been damaged yet. After saying that, she didn't give them a chance to ask again. Goodbye. After watching Demon Monarch Night Frost leave with Tian Xian and Hong Xiao, the 4 of them sat down again. Qin Shi flicked his finger, casting a soundproof barrier. What do you want to say? What did they get from the ghost city? Jing Xingji asked, tapping the hilt of his sword. This was an affirmative statement, not a question. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left the sacrificial temple so decisively. If they stayed here, Demon Monarch Night Frost only needed to use some devil aura to protect the 2 people from being burned by White Tiger's breath. If they left, they would die. Qin Shi looked at Nie Wushang, then looked at Jing Xingji. He said, Do you want to do something? Of these 2 people, one was lost in thought, and the other's eyes were darting around. It seemed neither of them wanted to end things like this. Jing Xingji chuckled when he heard what Qin Shi said. He patted Qin Shi's shoulder and said, Are you willing? Maybe you can really get some treasure from them and leave. Qin Shi glanced at the white tiger in the middle. So you're giving up? Jing Xingji took his hand back and sighed. I don't want to give up either way, but I have to make a choice. Did he expect him to obtain White Tiger's inheritance, then go on a killing spree and leave confidently? He wasn't a greenhorn who daydreamed all day and wanted to get fated chances. He had to save his life first. Ignore them, Qin Shi said. I said I'll call for reinforcements. We'll just wait here. He then stared at Jing Xingji. Mo Tinga didn't need to say anything, and he didn't need to care about Nie Wushang. His words were a warning to Jing Xingji not to act recklessly. Jing Xingji still tried to defend himself. Can your summoning talisman get out? Even if it can, how can you explain the situation here? You don't need to worry about that. I have a way. Qin Shi said faintly, then closed his eyes and meditated without saying anything else. He lost a drop of blood essence, and it would take him a lot of effort to recover. Seeing that Mo Tiange was also staring at him, Jing Xingji helplessly spread his hands and continued to cultivate. If they didn't want to leave, then so be it. In any case, he wasn't Master Song Feng, and had no enmity with the people of the Immortal Alliance, so he wasn't afraid they would kill him first. The four people fell silent again. Mo Tiange said to Fei Fei, "Can you really take White Tiger away?" Fei Fei wagged its tail and raised its head. "Just wait and see." After Demon Monarch Night Frost left, it was very quiet outside. If they used force to break out of the encirclement, it was impossible for there to be no movement at all. It seemed their guess was right. Hong Xiao obtained some treasure from Ghost City. However, Mo Tiange felt strange. Why did Master Song Feng just stand by and watch like them? They did it because they had a backup plan, but what about Master Song Feng? Even if he safely waited until the people of the Immortal Alliance broke into Ghost City, how could he guarantee his own safety? For him, the people of the Immortal Alliance were more dangerous than those ghost cultivators. As she thought about this, there seemed to be a commotion outside. She turned around and saw the other three people open their eyes. "What's going on?" Mo Tiange asked in a low voice. After a while he said, "Someone's coming." Could it be the people of the Immortal Alliance? The four people were a bit nervous. If it was the people of the Immortal Alliance, they would be saved. But soon, the four people were disappointed. Among the three people, the leader was in the late nascent soul realm, and was a devil cultivator. Obviously, Demon Monarch Night Frost's group had returned. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group came back in a very sorry state. Hong Xiao's tube skirt was almost covered in blood, and there was a shocking black mark on her white waist. Tianxian looked a bit better. His fake hand, which had been hidden in his sleeve, also had a black mark. Demon Monarch Night Frost's face was pale. He had consumed a lot of devil aura. As soon as they came in, Demon Monarch Night Frost gave them, and Master Song Feng a warning look and ordered Tianxian, "Take out the devil breath pill." Then she waved the purple satin to isolate the white tiger's breath, and put Hong Xiao inside. When she finished, Tianxian still didn't move. Demon Monarch Night Frost turned her head and looked at him. "What?" Tianxian said faintly. "Schwanger, even if we can save her, how can we take her out?" Demon Monarch Night Frost was stunned. She slowly stood up and stared at him. You want me to give up on Hong Xiao?" Tianxian looked away and said, "We don't have any strength left." Demon Monarch Night Frost didn't say anything. She just stared at Tianxian in silence. It wasn't until Hong Xiao coughed up blood that her attention was pulled back. "Castellan." Hong Xiao looked up with a sad but firm expression. "You guys should go. My injuries can't be healed." "Don't say that." Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression immediately became firm. She looked at Tianxian and said, "Devil breath pill." Tianxian didn't move. Demon Monarch Night Frost said again, "Devil breath pill." Her voice was still calm, but it became more and more determined each time. Tianxian finally sighed, took out a pill bottle and tossed it over. Demon Monarch Night Frost caught it, and was about to take out the pill, when the sky above her suddenly darkened. A powerful force enveloped her. She waved her hand, and an icy devil aura rose from her sleeve to resist that force. She was about to turn her head when she heard Hong Xiao shout, "Castellan," and her whole body went numb. Hong Xiao looked behind her in horror, her lips trembling. "Young master." Chapter 558. Above Night Frost Demon Monarch's head was an upside-down cup-shaped Dharma treasure. It emitted a black light that enveloped her. Under the black light, Night Frost Demon Lord was unable to move. The hand holding the pill bottle was tilted. Hong Xiao dazedly looked at the two people in front of her, and suddenly shouted with all her might, "Gongzi, what are you doing?" Sky Xian's gaze was heavy. He didn't even look at Hong Xiao. He stretched out his silver fake hand, and slapped Night Frost Demon Monarch's back several times. Unable to move, Night Frost Demon Lord could only endure it. After the final palm strike, the demonic aura in her body choked, and her cultivation was sealed just like that. Mo Tiange's group of four was dumbstruck as they watched this scene unfold. They previously thought of all kinds of possibilities, but they never expected there would be such a change. What is he doing? Emotinga asked in a low voice. Being in the sacrificial temple, the breath of the white tiger had a suppressive effect on the devil chi. Moreover, there were ghost cultivators surrounding him like an iron bucket. Even if he had extraordinary magical powers, how would he be able to break through? Just now, the three of them had traveled together and returned with serious injuries. Under such circumstances, he still attacked Demon Lord Nightfrost. Did he really want to be trapped here forever? Moreover, they were not only master and disciple, but also lovers. She shook his head and didn't answer. Why? Fiend Lord Nightfrost asked softly after a while. She tried to control her emotions, but her voice still trembled. Because I hate you, Tianxian said word by word. Many emotions flashed across his face. One moment he was in love, the next moment he was angry, the next moment he was lost, the next moment he was sad. Hate me? Demon Lord Nightfrost repeated with a blank expression. Young master, Hong Xiao shouted sternly. When has the city lord wronged you? Without a city lord, why are you here with your cultivation? Tianxian stared at Hong Xiao and sneered. That's right, she didn't let me down, but so what? What does it have to do with me hating her? Hong Xiao was stunned. She didn't understand. Since he didn't apologize, why did he hate her? She had a pure mind. Although she was a maid, she had never suffered the slightest bit. So she did not know the complexity of people's hearts. I hate you. Tianxian looked indifferent. Why did you bring me back? I hate you. Why are you with me? I hate you. Why can't you forget Yisha? When he said the last sentence, his eyes were filled with rage and intense hatred. Yisha. Emotinga's curiosity was piqued when she heard this name. What did Yisha have to do with Yishuang? Could it be? Yisha, Nightfrost Fiend Lord said. Yisha is you. Why must you? I'm not Yisha. Tianxian was furious. His pale blue face was undulating. After taking a deep breath, he said calmly, I have long lost the memory of my previous life. What does Yisha have to do with me? He sneered. You think I'm Yisha, but have you ever thought that I don't want to be Yisha? Nightfrost Demon Monarch closed his eyes and shook his head. I didn't expect. Of course you wouldn't expect it. Tianxian looked at her coldly. This devil cultivator of the late Yuan dynasty, one of the three devil monarchs in Yunzhong, looked so weak from the back. You found me on your own accord, accepted me as your disciple, and treated me as Yisha. Do you think I would be grateful to you? In that case, your feelings are all fake. No. Tianxian stared at her back. Tenderness flashed across his eyes. Everything I said to you is true. It has always been true. But you only have Yisha in your heart. You only treat me as Yisha. His voice was so sad, as if the betrayer was Nightfrost Demon Monarch and not him. Just because of this, Nightfrost Demon Monarch couldn't help but laugh. Just because of this, you want to kill me? Tianxian didn't answer. He said indifferently, You are one of the three devil monarchs. You control Night Owl City. You are one of the top cultivators in Yunzhong. You are too amazing. You treat me as Yisha, and keep me by your side. I can only be Yisha, and be your pet. What do the people in the City Lord Manor think of me? What do the cultivators in Yunzhong think of me? They are very respectful in front of me, but they whisper behind my back. Just like what Hong Xiao said, without you, how can I achieve my cultivation? That's what everyone thinks. They treat me as your male pet. So what? His gaze landed on the void. Nightfrost Demon Monarch said softly, I know I'm not. You know I'm not. Isn't that enough? It's not you. Of course you don't know how painful this feeling is. Tianxian shouted. Nightfrost Demon Monarch shut his mouth tightly and didn't say a word. I love you, he said. His pale blue face was warm, but it slowly turned cold. But I'm not Yisha. I can't stand you thinking of Yisha when you look at me. He continued. From the beginning to the end, the person you love is only Yisha. Yisha is dead. You tried your best to find his reincarnation. You can't stand Yisha leaving you. After a few hundred years, you found me and brought me back to Night Owl City. You worked hard for the mutant blood in my body. Whatever Yisha likes, you make me do it. Whatever Yisha hates, you never let me see. But I don't have the memories of my previous life. I might not like what he likes, and I might not hate what he hates. I'm completely different from Yi Sha. But you ignore me. I want you to really look at me, not Yi Sha, but me. After a long silence, Night Frost Demon Monarch finally said, "When did you start to want to kill me?" Tianxian showed a bitter smile. "Before this, I couldn't make up my mind. Just now, as luck would have it," Night Frost Demon Monarch said sadly. "You wanted to kill me for a long time. Otherwise, you would have let me know you have this kind of magic weapon." After a moment of silence, Tianxian said, "Maybe. Do you have anything else to say?" The truth was in front of him, but Night Frost Demon Monarch calmed down. Tianxian's expression was complicated. In the end, he shook his head. "No. Then let's do it," Night Frost Demon Monarch said faintly. "You'll be more confident if you go alone." Tianxian clenched his teeth and slowly raised his silver fake hand. Asterisk, 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 that's strange. He killed Night Frost Demon Monarch. Isn't he afraid of being killed by us alone? Jing Xingji said. Qinshi said, "I fought him before. He has a strange divine ability. His body can turn into invisible devil aura, so he's not afraid of being hurt." Nie Wushang's eyes brightened. "There's actually such a divine ability? Yes, he can't beat me, but I also can't hurt him." Seeing Tianxian slowly raising his hand, Hong Xiao suddenly pounced on him. The double-edged dagger in her hand spun quickly and ruthlessly stabbed at Tianxian. Tianxian's eyes turned cold. Hong Xiao had just jumped when he waved his fake hand and ruthlessly slapped her head, smashing her nascent soul. Emo Tienga felt a chill in her heart. This Tianxian seemed to like this kind of method very much. Huaziki and Zhongxi's corpses were also crushed like this. Even their nascent souls were crushed without leaving anything behind. Red Silk. Demon Lord Night Frost was alarmed when he saw this scene. Hong Xiao screamed. The light in her eyes disappeared, and she fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Looking at Hong Xiao's bleeding corpse, Night Frost Demon Monarch was stunned. It took her a long time to regain her composure. Tianxian said indifferently, "I didn't expect she'd be willing to risk her life for you. I underestimated her." Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled sadly. "It turns out I'm not a failure after all. Someone's willing to die for me." She then closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She suddenly threw the pill bottle in her hand and made a hand seal. A devil aura appeared behind her and shook Tianxian away. "You." Tianxian was shaken and took several steps back. He stared at her in shock. Night Frost Demon Monarch slowly turned around and stared at him fixedly. You weren't immobilized?" Night Frost Demon Monarch stretched out her hand, and the goblet magic weapon fell into her hand. She looked at it inside. The illusory immobilization goblet. "It turns out it fell into your hands, but you never told me." Then she looked at him and said faintly, "You underestimate late nascent realm cultivators. This goblet is indeed a rare treasure, but it's still not enough to immobilize a late nascent realm cultivator." Tianxian was silent for a while and asked, "Are you going to kill me?" Night Frost Demon Monarch didn't answer. She said, "You said I ignored your wish, but why didn't you tell me you weren't willing? Was it because I didn't want to listen? Or was it because you didn't dare to tell me?" Tianxian didn't answer. Night Frost Demon Monarch continued, "That's right. I've always thought of you as Yi Sha, because you're indeed Yi Sha's reincarnation. If you didn't want to be Yi Sha, you could have told me directly, but you never did." She let out a long sigh, and sadness finally appeared in her eyes. "I finally know that you're not Yi Sha. Yi Sha never felt inferior. He's magnanimous and only asks for himself. He doesn't care about other people's rumors." He wanted to say that he didn't feel inferior, but he couldn't say it under Night Frost Demon Monarch's clear gaze. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I made you do something you don't like. Back then, I made a promise with Yi Sha. If one of us died first, we'd find the other's reincarnation. We'd be together forever." She smiled sadly, and tears welled up in her eyes. "I did as I promised. I thought we'd fulfill our vow and be together forever. Only now do I realize that I was wrong. Our vow was like a castle in the air. It could never be fulfilled." Tianxian was silent. This was something he didn't know. I found you and saw that you still loved me. So I thought it could be done. But I didn't know that after you reincarnated and forgot the memories of your previous life, you'd become someone else. Since you're not Isha, how can I ask you to continue the vow from your previous life? He wanted to say that he really wasn't Isha, but he felt a dull pain in his heart. Was he really not him in his previous life? Nightfrost Demon Monarch took a deep breath and said, "Let's end our vow. From now on you're you, and I'm me." The purple ribbon rose and turned into a purple light, stabbing into Tian Xian's head like lightning. Tian Xian's eyes widened in shock as he stared at her. Hong Xiao followed me for hundreds of years, and she died for me. I can't not avenge her. Looking at his unwilling eyes, a tear rolled down her cheek. She said softly, "You won't meet me in your next life." Demon Monarch Night Frost wasn't angry, but he also didn't explain. He only said faintly, "Fellow Taoist, you're not the person involved, so you naturally won't understand." He then looked at Qin Shi and asked, "May I?" Taoist Demon Monarch of Frost Monarch Qin, what price you are willing to pay? Daff of time. Demon Monarch Knight. Demon Qin of Qin asked Qin. Qin of Demon of Demon. Took of. Qin Shi took it but said, "This thing doesn't seem to be able to hold fellow Taoist." The Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled bitterly. It's obviously less effective against late nascent cultivators. However, it was not to the extent that it was completely ineffective. My disciple is a devil cultivator, and his blood and qi are not pure, so he can't bring out the effect of this cup. You are Tao cultivators. If you refine it properly, it will be of some use even against late nascent soul cultivators. Qin Shi released his divine sense to explore the cup. He then nodded and said, "It's indeed a treasure. This isn't the only thing, right?" Seeing that Qin Shi had the intention to agree, Jing Xingji hurriedly said, "There are 4 of us." Night Frost Devil Monarch glanced at him, then took out a book from his robe and tossed it to him. "I also obtained this sword art from returning Ruin Sea. It's useless to me, so I'll give it to fellow Taoist." He then turned to Nie Wushang and said, "As for this fellow Taoist, I can teach you the invisibility transformation technique." Nie Wushang's eyes brightened. "Fellow Taoist, are you talking about the divine ability to transform into devil aura and be unafraid of harm?" "It's not that I'm unafraid of harm, but I have to find the right weak point. In addition, I have to remind fellow Taoists that not everyone can practice this technique. Although my aptitude and cultivation level both surpass Tianxuan's, I know nothing about this technique." Nie Wushang nodded. "I understand." Night Frost Devil Monarch no longer said anything. He took out a jade slip from his Qianquan bag and tossed it to Nie Wushang. As for fellow Taoist Mo, Night Frost Devil Monarch looked at Fei Fei, who was curled up in the corner, and absorbed the white tiger's breath, and said, "I have something that must be very useful to fellow Taoist." He then took out a bracelet and handed it to Mo Tiange. This thing is called a spiritual beast bracelet, and it can store spiritual beasts. Unlike a spiritual beast bag, this thing can store up to 10 spiritual beasts. Moreover, cultivating inside a spiritual beast bracelet is much better than cultivating inside a spiritual beast bag. Mo Tiange took the bracelet and released her divine sense. "Fellow Taoist, you're right. The 4 of them each got an item, and all of them were extraordinary. As experienced late nascent soul cultivators, they were indeed extraordinary." The 4 of them looked at each other, all very satisfied. Qin Shi said, "That being the case, I'll be frank with fellow Taoist. Before long, someone will come to rescue you. At that time, fellow Taoists can leave with us." Hearing that, Night Frost Devil Monarch frowned slightly. "There are so many ghost cultivators here. How are we going to rescue them?" Seeing that Qin Shi was very confident, she hesitated for a moment then nodded. "All right, I believe you." After she said that, she simply picked a corner that wasn't too far away and sat down. Although Night Frost Devil Monarch was sitting cross-legged, her eyes were wide open, staring straight ahead. Mo Tiange glanced at Jing Xingji and said through voice transmission, "You don't like her?" Jing Xingji smiled carelessly, and replied through voice transmission. How could I? No. How could you talk to her like that? Mo Tiange wasn't polite at all. If it were me, I'd slap you to death. Jing Xingji curled his lips and said, if Qin Shoujing died. Nonsense. Before he could finish, Mo Tiange glared at him. If you say one more word, I'll slap you to death right now. Fine, I just think she's very fake. Since they were lovers of 2 lives, why didn't she hesitate when she killed him? She still had to find his reincarnation. Mo Tiange understood a little. Jing Xingji seemed to be heartless, but he was actually very sentimental. So he felt unhappy when he saw Night Frost Devil Monarch kill Tianxian, without hesitation. You don't understand. Mo Tiange looked at Night Frost Devil Monarch and sighed. If it were me, I might make the same choice as her. Why? Because he's already fallen into a demonic barrier. Even if he's freed, this life is over. It's better to end it quickly and start the next life. Mo Tiange smiled and said, I think she'll still look for Yi Sha's reincarnation, but she'll definitely not recognize him. Maybe she'll just accept him as her disciple. Or maybe she won't even see him, and just protect him for the rest of his life. Jing Xingji's expression slowly softened. I really can't understand a woman's mind, Mo Tiange said softly. After reincarnation, we'll be different people. Our fate only lasts for this life, so we should cherish it. After Master Song Feng escaped, he didn't return. She stared thoughtfully at the stone door. Did Master Song Feng leave safely? Upon hearing this, Night Frost Devil Monarch said, the thing he snatched was the soul bead Hongxiao got from Ghost City. There are countless souls inside the soul bead, and its aura is very strong. With this thing, it can deceive ghost cultivators' spiritual senses. So that's how it is. Night Frost Devil Monarch sighed and smiled bitterly. He must have heard our voice transmission. I underestimated the cultivators of the celestial pole. Mo Tiange said, if that's the case, why were the 3 of you discovered with the soul bead? Night Frost Devil Monarch answered, the aura of the soul bead can only cover one person's aura. Tianxian can turn invisible, but Hongxiao and I have to rely on the soul bead, so... Oh, Mo Tiange nodded in understanding. No wonder Tianxian said, he didn't have the strength to take Hongxiao with him. If he gave up on Hongxiao, they could leave safely. However, Night Frost Devil Monarch wasn't willing to give up on Hongxiao, so it became an unsolvable situation. The world was really strange. If Night Frost Devil Monarch gave up on Hongxiao and was willing to leave with Tianxian, Tianxian might not have made a move. Night Frost Devil Monarch was a late nascent soul cultivator. Although Tianxian wanted to kill her, he must have hesitated. If he just wanted her dead, he could have left alone and let them be killed by ghost cultivators. But he didn't. The dispute between them couldn't be solved by killing. Relying on the soul bead, Master Song Feng safely escaped from the tunnel. The black cloud dispersed. He stood in the air above Sandstorm City with the soul bead in his hand, and a sneer on his face. You'll be trapped down there until you die. Even if you use the 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman to inform Qin Jinghe, he can't find you here. Thinking of Nie Wushang, he said bitterly, B*Th. You're lucky I didn't kill you with my own hands. He was about to turn into a black cloud and escape back to Langtu Mountain when he suddenly looked up and stared at the east with his withered eyes. Several flight lights flew over in an instant, and a glittering white net covered him from above. Master Song Feng was shocked. He turned into a black cloud and was about to escape. Unexpectedly, another flight light appeared in the place he was about to escape. The sword aura tore through the sky and rushed towards him mercilessly. Master Song Feng was shocked after dodging the sword aura. Then flame soared into the sky, and at the same time, Lord Taoist Jinghe's triumphant voice rang out. Old Song Feng, what a coincidence! You're also here. As soon as he finished speaking, several flight lights surrounded him. The flight lights dispersed, revealing several people's faces. The one flying over from the east was Lord Taoist Jinghe, wearing a golden crown and luxurious clothes. He held a fire gourd in his hand, ready to attack. On the west was a handsome young swordsman dressed in a black sword robe, with a flying sword as bright as stars floating in front of him. On the south was a taciturn Taoist in plain clothes. His thin face was expressionless, and his eyes were cold. On the north was a woman in white holding a zither. Master Song Feng was shocked. Qin Jinghe, venerable swordsman Yuanying, Lord Taoist wordless, and Ding Wuan. Why did all these people come? Chapter 560. 3 cultivators in the late nascent soul stage, and 1 in the middle nascent soul stage. Venerable swordsman Yuanying and Lord Taoist speechless, had been in the late nascent soul stage for hundreds of years, and their strength was unfathomable. Lord Taoist Jinghe had just entered the late nascent soul stage not long ago, but he was well known for his bloodthirst. Together with Ding Wuan, they were the top cultivators in the middle stage of the nascent soul stage. No matter how arrogant Master Song Feng was, he didn't think he could get the upper hand against these 4 people. In the black cloud, Master Song Feng's mind was as fast as lightning. He had decided to run, but where to run was a problem. As he thought about this, he suddenly sensed something. He turned his head, and saw more than a dozen flight lights rushing towards him from the east. Sensing their cultivation levels, Master Song Feng was shocked. All of them are nascent soul cultivators. Hey, old Song Feng, look at the gift we prepared for you. Are you surprised? Lord Taoist Jinghe never fell behind when it came to adding insult to injury. The flight lights of the nascent soul cultivators arrived in a flash, and more than a dozen nascent soul and middle nascent soul cultivators showed up. Although it was extremely dangerous, Master Song Feng calmed down. After he reached the nascent soul stage with ordinary aptitude, he became the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole. Apart from fated chances, he didn't lack any wisdom. Qin Jinghe, you're so powerful. Do you want to kill me in one fell swoop? How would I dare? Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled. But I still have to leave a layer of skin, right? Oomph. A cold hum came from the black cloud. You want to keep me here with your numbers? You're too naive. Old Song Feng. You want to escape from the siege of so many people with just the nascent soul stage? You're too naive. It was Ding Wuan who spoke. She and Master Song Feng had an old grudge, and they fought once on Demonic Mountain. Master Song Feng didn't answer. Qin Jinghe alone was hard enough to deal with, but now there was a group of people. Don't talk to him. Let's do it. Venerable swordsman Yuanying said faintly, and waved her right hand gently. The wind feather sword floating in front of her instantly turned into a sword light, and rushed towards Master Song Feng like lightning. Gujian sect had lost a lot of people to Master Song Feng, and among them, there was even a nascent soul cultivator. Venerable swordsman Yuanying had once sought trouble with Master Song Feng because of this, but in the end, he didn't gain any advantage. Now that he had a chance to kill Master Song Feng, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Master Song Feng didn't dare to underestimate the attack of a Queen Origin sword cultivator. The black clouds scattered around him suddenly gathered together and turned into a shield, meeting the wind feather sword head-on. The wind feather sword was called Wind Feather. It was as fast as the wind and as light as a feather. The moment it collided with the black cloud shield, it nimbly made a turn and stabbed toward Master Song Feng again. At the same time, the sound of the zither rang out. Ding Wuan plucked the strings of the zither. Like a powerful army, swords and spears clashing, she attacked Master Song Feng murderously. Lord Taoist Jinghe made a hand seal, and Nanyangli fire sprang out of the gourd, forming 1,000 feet long rainbow light that burned towards Master Song Feng. Daolord Speechless wasn't idle either. A giant net of lightning descended from the heavens, flashing with white light, and occasionally crackling sounds could be heard. When the 4 of them attacked, all of them used the killing moves that they were famous for. Facing Master Song Feng, they didn't dare to take him lightly even if they were besieging him. Qin, she suddenly opened his eyes. After listening carefully for a while he said, "There's movement." Upon hearing that, the other 4 people woke up from their meditation. "What's wrong?" Emotinga asked. "Qin," she said, "there's a fight of magical powers up there." Before he finished speaking, the surroundings shook. The stone used to build the sacrificial temple was made of unknown materials, but it was extremely hard. Cultivators fighting wouldn't make it collapse. Such a strong shaking, if it wasn't close to the place where the fight was taking place, would be extremely powerful. Judging from the current situation, it shouldn't be the former. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, no wonder these people are so sure. This kind of movement means there must be more than one cultivator in the late nascent soul stage. The earth-shaking fight lasted for a quarter of an hour before it slowly quieted down. Emotianga was puzzled. Where is the fight taking place? The one who answered was Demon Monarch Knight Frost. She said faintly, in Sandstorm City. Qin nodded. He could only roughly sense the location of the fight. After a brief calculation, it should be in Sandstorm City. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's words confirmed it. In Sandstorm City, could it be that ghost cultivators want to come out? It's possible, Qin said. Now that we know there's a ghost city here, maybe those ghost cultivators will go all out and simply come out in a high profile to make us fear the strength of the ghost city and not dare to disturb us. Emotianga shook her head. There's a sacrificial temple and a secret storehouse here. Those ghost cultivators are wrong. They speculated, but they didn't know they were wrong. Ghost cultivators didn't want the world to know about the existence of the ghost city, at least not now. After 2 hours of silence, the mountain shook again. They even heard a thunderous explosion, as if the mountain was collapsing. Gradually, the ghost cultivators outside the sacrificial temple became restless like a cat released into a group of mice. Sensing the panic, Jing Xingji couldn't sit still anymore. He said, I'll go out and take a look. Demon Monarch Knight Frost also said, I'll go too. Nia Wushang didn't need to be mentioned. She was safe here because of the spirit-concealing formation Emotianga laid, so she couldn't wait to go out. Emotianga was about to go out with Qin when Feifei pulled her sleeve. Don't go. Wait. Emotianga stopped Qin. What's wrong? Emotianga pointed at Feifei. It wants to subdue the white tiger. Qin was surprised. It has a way. Emotianga didn't explain and just looked at Feifei. Feifei didn't waste any time. It silently chanted an obscure incantation, and its 4 claws slowly emitted a golden light. Emotianga and Qin's spirits were shaken. They felt like their minds had never been so clear. Stepping on the golden light, Feifei leaped towards the white tiger. The two of them felt the killing intent in the air slowly dissipate, and their minds became clear. This was a very mysterious feeling. They seemed to have arrived in another world. The sky was high, the clouds were clear, the sun was bright, and the spring breeze was caressing their faces. It was extremely peaceful. What are you standing there for? Feifei's voice rang out, awakening the two of them from their intoxication. This time, it directly made a sound instead of using its divine sense to transmit its voice. Qin sobered up and was stunned. It can talk. Emotianga didn't have time to explain to him. She looked up and saw Feifei standing in the center. The white tiger had disappeared without a trace. Can you really put it away? Emotianga was surprised. The white tiger's body was so huge that the storage space it came with as a spiritual beast could actually hold it. Feifei didn't answer this stupid question. It lowered its head and looked at the golden fist-sized light bead under its feet. It said regretfully, It actually didn't recognize me as its master. What's this? Emotianga sensed the pure white tiger's breath in it. Feifei didn't absorb it completely? Feifei said, The white tiger's power is too strong. I can't hold it, you guys try it. What a pity. Emotianga smiled. The azure dragon bone she obtained wasn't complete, and Qin's vermilion bird's breath hadn't been completely absorbed yet. If Feifei really took the whole white tiger, she would feel it was unfair. Senior martial brother, you have metal spiritual roots. You can try it first. Emotianga called out when she remembered that Qin's 3-yang real fire sword was also metal. Qin nodded. Without any nonsense, he walked towards the white tiger light bead. He had already experienced a fated chance encounter with a divine beast, so he was still calm. He didn't immediately try to take it. Instead, he operated the pure yang art and covered his hand with a layer of spiritual aura before he grabbed the white tiger light bead. As soon as his spiritual aura touched the light bead suddenly released white tiger's breath, surging towards Qin Shi with a murderous intent. Once he realized something was wrong, Qin Shi immediately forced out the vermilion bird's flame to block the white tiger's breath. Although the vermilion bird's flame he subdued was much weaker, White Tiger's attribute was metal and was restrained by fire. He only retreated a few steps before he stood firmly. Feifei was disappointed. Although you have metal spiritual roots, you haven't practiced metal cultivation techniques, so you're not strong enough to subdue White Tiger's breath. Qin Shi had long prepared for this, so he didn't feel too disappointed. He turned to Emotienga. Do you want to try it? Although she agreed, Emotienga didn't think she could subdue White Tiger's breath. She also hadn't practiced metal cultivation techniques. She only had the Great Heavenly Thunder technique, which was slightly related to the metal attribute. Sure enough, as soon as she touched the White Tiger light bead, it burst out with a strong killing intent. Fortunately, she was prepared for it. With a thought, golden lightning emerged from her hand. At the same time, Qin Shi summoned the vermilion bird's flame to block it for her. What should we do? Feifei was even more disappointed. Fertile water shouldn't be kept in an outsider's field. If the three of them, oh no, 2 people and 1 beast couldn't subdue it, wouldn't that be giving it to someone else? There was a loud noise outside, and the sacrificial temple shook even more violently. At the same time, a flame flew in from outside. Qin Shi reached out, and the flame fell on his hand. It was a fire talisman. He flicked his finger, and the fire talisman turned into a wisp of smoke. A voice came through. Little brat, you're still alive, right? Qin Shi smiled. Master is here. Upon hearing Lord Taoist Jinghe's voice, Emotienga also felt relieved. Then shall we go out? Since they couldn't subdue it, they didn't need to stay. Emotienga patted Feifei's spiritual beast bag. I don't need to tell you, right? Feifei curled its lips and obediently returned to the spiritual beast bag. Having a master was good. At least it didn't need to take risks on its own. The 2 of them flew along the stone path and arrived at the damaged part of the stone wall in an instant. The ghost cultivators guarding outside were no longer there. Not far away, ghost cultivators were fighting with a group of human cultivators. There were about 20 human cultivators, and all of them were in the nascent soul realm. Although they weren't as many as ghost cultivators, their magic weapons were much more powerful. So the battle was temporarily tied. Emotienga saw Lord Taoist Jinghe at first glance, who told him to be so eye-catching with his dazzling golden clothes. Master! Lord Taoist Jinghe turned to look at them and glared at them. 2 little brats. You really know how to cause trouble. You need a lesson, right? Emotienga giggled. Master can teach us a lesson when we go back. Less nonsense. Why aren't you helping us? Although it was delightful for master and disciple to reunite, they had to be careful of provoking public anger. Qin Shoujing only used a sound-transmitting talisman, but Qin Jinghe dragged a large group of nascent soul cultivators to fight. It was really annoying. Sure enough, Ding Wan shouted loudly. Can you master and disciple talk after you're done fighting? If you keep talking, I'll leave. Emotienga and Qin Shi cupped their fists towards the number 1 female cultivator in the celestial pole and joined the fight. At the same time, she sent a voice transmission to Jing Xingji, who wasn't too far away. Fellow Taoist Jing, go back and take a look. Maybe you'll have a fated chance. Jing Xingji, who was fighting, looked at her with surprise. Emotienga showed a faint smile. Jing Xingji pondered for a moment, then pretended to be powerless, and returned to the sacrificial temple. Chapter 561. The fight of dozens of nascent soul cultivators soon caused the whole mountain to collapse. This secret storehouse hidden in the West Mountain Range was finally exposed to the sun after tens of thousands of years. As soon as they saw the sun, the ghost cultivators turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated to the ghost city. The human cultivators seized the opportunity and finally alerted the master of the ghost city, the ghost venerable. This ghost venerable was already at the peak of the late nascent soul realm, only a step away from the deification realm. Because ghost cultivators had no bodies, it was difficult for them to resist the power of heaven and earth. Once they advanced to the deification realm, they would face a great tribulation. So they didn't dare to do so. Even under the sun, the three late nascent soul cultivators and the ghost venerable only fought to a draw. In the end, the two sides shook hands and sat down to negotiate. These things had nothing to do with Emotienga and Qin Shi. With the elders here, they couldn't make decisions. They just sat leisurely on a relatively intact mountain, waiting for the result of the negotiation. In this war, Fengsha City and the mountain range connected to it were almost razed to the ground, causing the Shirong people not far from Fengsha City to shout that gods had descended. Looking at these Shirong people, Emotienga had a strange feeling. Thinking about it carefully, the legend of the Shirong people was quite close to the truth. They said Fengsha City was a city of devils, but in the end, there really was a ghost city hidden under Fengsha City. They said gods had descended. Weren't they the cultivators, the gods in the eyes of the Shirong people? Jing Xingji flew out of the sacrificial temple with a happy face. The mountain collapsed, and the sacrificial temple was exposed. Qin Shoujing Emoqingwei. He shouted from a distance, causing a lot of people to look at him. Nie Wushang curled her lips. He was really a very practical guy. He called whoever was good for him. Look, the three of them were sitting together. But this guy simply ignored her. The sword light fell on the mountain where they were. Jing Xingji put away his flying sword and smiled like peach blossoms flying everywhere. You subdued it? Emotienga asked. Jing Xingji nodded. He couldn't control the smile on his face. Haha, I've finally gotten lucky this time. Nie Wushang said indifferently. You've put good luck on your face. Do you want others to steal it? There are many jealous people here. Jing Xingji stopped smiling. Unfortunately, he was in a good mood. Even if he didn't smile, he was still beaming with joy. Ahem. He put on an act and stopped smiling. He looked at the nascent soul cultivators who were resting not far away and said, if they want to snatch this Taoist things, it depends on whether they have the ability or not. It wasn't that he was being arrogant, but it was good enough that he didn't rob ordinary Yuanchu and Yuanzhong cultivators. As for late Yuanchu cultivators, they could still run if they couldn't beat him. Just as they were chatting, the Night Frost Demon Monarch came over. Now that the celestial pole demonic path was at odds with each other, she was a demonic cultivator. If she hadn't reached an agreement with them, she would most likely be surrounded and attacked by them right now. The Night Frost Demon Monarch was very glad that he had chosen to work with them. Fellow Taoists, Fiendlord Nightfrost bowed. The four of them stood up and bowed in return. I'm going back to Yunzhong. Let's meet again if fate allows it. Fellow Yi Shuang, are you leaving so soon? The Night Frost Demon Lord swept his gaze across the surrounding cultivators and said, it's inconvenient to stay here. It's best if you leave as soon as possible. Emotienga thought of something and asked, fellow Taoist Nightfrost, didn't you come here for something? If you leave now, wouldn't this trip be in vain? The Night Frost Demon Monarch lowered his gaze and said softly, there's no need. The four of them understood that he must have taken this thing for Tianxian. The atmosphere was awkward, so Emotienga said hurriedly, that being the case, we'll meet again. The Night Frost Demon Monarch looked up and showed a rare smile. We'll meet again. Once he finished speaking, he waved the purple satin, turned into a flight light, and quickly disappeared into the sky. Soon after the Night Frost Demon Monarch left, Lord Taoist Jinghe came out. As a late nascent soul great cultivator and the representative of Xianqing School, he naturally participated in the negotiations. Now that he came out, there should be a result. Master! Emotienga and Qin Shi shouted. Jing Xingji and Nie Wushang stood up awkwardly and bowed. Senior Jinghe. Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, why are you so polite? Sit down. He then took out the cloud carriage in a carefree manner and cast a spell, turning it into a gazebo. As expected of a late nascent soul cultivator, even his means of enjoyment were more brilliant than theirs. It could be seen that nascent soul cultivators also depended on accumulation. Those who were carefree, wherever they went, were most likely nascent soul cultivators who had been cultivating for a long time. Only then would they have the time to make these things in their spare time. As for those like them who found a random corner to squat, they were most likely people who hadn't formed their nascent soul for a long time or wholeheartedly cultivated. Although these means of enjoyment weren't important in fighting, if they fought normally, their momentum would be weakened. Emotienga wondered whether she should also make something. Ever since she embarked on the path to immortality, she hadn't stopped cultivating. Now that she was a nascent soul cultivator, cultivation speed wasn't the most important thing. She still had more than 1,000 years of lifespan. With her qualifications and resources, reaching the late nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Therefore, the most important thing was accumulation. Not only the accumulation of cultivation, but also the accumulation of mental state. The 5 of them sat in the gazebo. Qinshi asked first, "Master, how did your discussion go?" Lord Taoist Jinghe said, "Since we didn't fight, we naturally reached an agreement." "What was the result?" The 4 pairs of eyes stared at Lord Taoist Jinghe. "We repaired the damaged parts of the ghost city, and the storehouse and the sacrificial temple will belong to us. Both sides won't invade each other." Oh, this was the best result. Now that the celestial pole was facing enemies on both sides, it really couldn't afford a war. For these ghost cultivators, occupying the resources on the ground was also unnecessary. They were afraid of sunlight, so it was best if they could hide in the ghost city and cultivate, without competing with the rest of the world. Lord Taoist Jinghe wasn't interested in these things, so he simply glanced at the 4 people without saying anything. Emotienga and Qinshi were scared by his gaze, and Nie Wushang and Jing Xingji also felt a bit uneasy. Because of Emotienga and Qinshi's relationship, the 2 of them naturally regarded Lord Taoist Jinghe as their elder. Now that they saw his expression, they couldn't help but think, did Lord Taoist Jinghe have a bad opinion of them, and didn't want them to associate with them? Nie Wushang was used to feeling inferior. She was Master Songfeng's disciple, and Master Songfeng was hated by everyone in Kunwu. As for Jing Xingji, he couldn't help but think that he was an abandoned disciple of Gujian sect, so he really wasn't a good disciple to the sect. Unexpectedly, Lord Taoist Jinghe didn't even ask them. He just said, "Did you get something good?" Others might not know, but he knew there were good things in the sacrificial temple. Qinshi got the vermilion bird bow from the vermilion bird sacrificial temple, so there was no reason that the white tiger sacrificial temple didn't have anything. The white tiger's fated chance was useless to ghost cultivators, so it must have been taken by the 4 of them. Emotienga chuckled. "Master, are you jealous?" Lord Taoist Jinghe rolled his eyes at her. "Don't show off your fated chance. Otherwise, if I can't control myself one day, I'll snatch all your treasures." "Yes, master. Snatching a disciple will cause inner demons." "Inner demons my ass. I'm already in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, so there's nothing to worry about even if I don't advance to the deification realm." Both Nie Wushang and Jing Xingji were dumbstruck as they watched the 2 of them spouting nonsense. Both of them had masters before, so when they faced their masters, they were always respectful. Unlike them, the master and disciple, who spouted nonsense. After Jing Xingji recovered from his surprise, he thought, "The rumors are indeed true. Lord Taoist Jinghe is very strange. He doesn't look like a nascent soul cultivator at all." After talking nonsense, Lord Taoist Jinghe looked at Nie Wushang with a smile. "Girl, you're old man Songfeng's disciple, right? That old guy doesn't look like a person, but he actually taught such a disciple." Although he didn't say it explicitly, his tone showed his appreciation for Nie Wushang. Nie Wushang was a bit overwhelmed by the favor. "Senior," Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, "You don't have to be so nervous. I have a big grudge against your master, and it has nothing to do with you. You're friends with my 2 brats, so I regard you as a junior." "Thank you, senior." Nie Wushang suppressed the excitement in her heart and answered. Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled and said, "Since I regard you as a junior, I'll give you a word of advice. Your master made a lot of enemies in Kunwu, so if you don't have anything else to do, you shouldn't stay in the celestial pole. Now that the world has changed, you can go anywhere, and Yunzhong is very suitable." Nie Wushang answered respectfully, "This matter is over, so Junior originally planned to return to Yunzhong." Lord Taoist Jinghe nodded with a smile, then turned to Jing Xingji and said with a sigh, "Boy, your fate can be considered full of misfortunes. I knew your master in the past, so I'll give you a word of advice. Being an individual cultivator is certainly unrestrained, but with a cultivation group as a backer, some things are much more convenient. Old Taoist Fuling is dead, and you're already a nascent soul cultivator, so the obstacles in the past don't exist anymore." Jing Xingji looked serious, which was rare for him. After listening to Lord Taoist Jinghe's words, he was silent for a moment, then respectfully replied, "Thank you for your advice, Senior. Junior will definitely keep it in mind." However, he didn't make his attitude clear. Lord Taoist Jinghe knew Jing Xingji had his own ideas, so he didn't say anything more. After all, people were different. Although he lived several hundred years longer than these juniors, he couldn't make decisions for them. "Right." Lord Taoist Jinghe glanced at Nie Wushang and said, "When we came, we happened to run into old man Song Feng here." Mo Tiange was shocked and asked impatiently, "What was the result?" "Master Song Feng, he even gave up his body." With Nie Wushang here, Lord Taoist Jinghe put away his complacency and said, "Although we didn't make him stay with so many people, we still heavily injured him. At the very least, he shouldn't think about stirring up trouble in the next 100 years." Nie Wushang felt both relieved and sad. Since her master was seriously injured, she didn't have to worry about him chasing after her for a while. "This thing was left by old man Song Feng. You can play with it." Lord Taoist Jinghe took out a gray bead from his sleeve and threw it to Mo Tiange. This soul bead was very rare, but it had no specific use and was nothing more than a toy. At that moment, a sword light flew towards them from not far away, and a handsome young swordsman landed on top of the mountain. Mo Tiange discovered his cultivation level was in the late nascent soul realm, and the flying sword floating above his head, so she knew he was Venerable Swordsman Yuanying of Gujian sect. She didn't expect this top late nascent soul sword cultivator to look like a teenager. Upon seeing him, Lord Taoist Jinghe said lazily, "Old man Yuanying, why are you in the mood to come here?" Venerable Swordsman Yuanying was famous for being indifferent. She didn't care about anything and rarely interacted with other cultivators. For him to take the initiative to come here was like the sun rising from the west. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying glanced at him and said coldly, "It's none of your business." She then walked towards Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji hastily stood up. Although he didn't salute, his expression and behavior were very respectful. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying stared at him for a long time before asking faintly, "Are you willing to return to Gujian sect?" Chapter 562. If it was someone else who said this, Mo Tiange would definitely scoff at it. In the past, when Jing Xingji was ostracized in Gujian sect, why didn't he come out to uphold justice? Now that Jing Xingji had formed his nascent soul, he was called back to Gujian sect. However, this person was Honorable Swordsman Yuanying, so this situation was not valid. Apart from Empress Yuan's cultivation level, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying was also famous in the celestial pole for his sword maniac and his righteousness. He was crazy about swords and collected flying swords and comprehended swordsmanship for fun. Other than that, he had no mood to deal with miscellaneous matters. Because of this, Gujian sect also established the title of Deacon Great Elder in addition to the Head Great Elder, and the previous Deacon Great Elder was Sword Venerable Fuling. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying had never interfered in the affairs of the sect, but he had always been righteous all his life. As long as he knew something, he would never be biased. Therefore, Mo Tiange was willing to believe that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying definitely didn't know about Jing Xingji being ostracized in the group. It had to be known that it had only been 100 years since Swordsman Zhongguang's death and Jing Xingji's departure from the sect. To Swordsman Yuanying, this was merely the time it took for her to enter seclusion. Because of this, after Sword Venerable Fuling died, Sword Venerable Yuanying had to come out to manage the sect's affairs. Faced with Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's invitation, Jing Xingji was first overwhelmed by the favor, but then he became hesitant. Venerated Swordsman Yuanying was a godlike existence among the ancient sword sect disciples. Every ancient sword sect disciple viewed venerated swordsman Yuanying as their idol, and Jing Xingji was no exception. If it was in the past, it would be an unparalleled honor for an ancient sect's disciple to receive a word from venerable swordsman Yuanying. However, Jing Xingji didn't answer for a long time, as he recalled what happened to him in Gujian sect. Honorable swordsman, Yuanying looked at him calmly. There was no coercion or temptation. He was just patiently waiting for his answer. Jing Xingji gritted his teeth and finally said, "Senior Yuanying is too kind. I'm used to living a free and unfettered life. I don't want to be bound by the sect anymore." He addressed venerable swordsman Yuanying as a senior instead of the martial uncle of the past. Hearing this answer, honorable swordsman Yuanying finally looked disappointed. It was difficult for sword cultivators to make a realm breakthrough. Gujian sect didn't have fewer disciples than Xianqing school, but there were far fewer nascent soul cultivators. After venerable swordsman Fuling passed away, apart from venerable swordsman Yuanying, there was only venerable swordsman Xiao He in the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Although another disciple advanced to the nascent soul realm in the past 100 years, two mediocre cultivators in the early Yuanying stage weren't enough to support Gujian sect, the third sect in the celestial pole. As for venerable swordsman Yuanying, he looked young, but in fact, he was a cultivator from the same generation as Lord Taoist Jinghe. If they wanted to maintain Gujian sect's prosperity, they had to nurture a cultivator capable of inheriting venerable swordsman Yuanying's position within 500 to 600 years. As for the two nascent soul cultivators of Gujian sect, whether it was in terms of comprehension or age, they weren't good enough to shoulder such a heavy responsibility. For this reason, venerated swordswoman Yuanying had no choice but to look for disciples with superior aptitude and temperament among the core formation cultivators. She planned to accept them as her direct disciples and pass on her mantle. In terms of aptitude and comprehension, Jing Xingji was top-notch among the new generation of disciples. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been accepted as a disciple by venerated swordsman Yuanying as soon as he entered the sect. He was one of the cultivators venerated swordsmen Yuanying thought had a high chance of advancing to the nascent soul realm. Unexpectedly, when she looked for him, she found out that Jing Xingji was missing. Later, she learned about the unfair treatment Jing Xingji received in the sect in the past 100 years. However, it was all too late. Jing Xingji killed venerable swordsman Fuling's disciple and didn't plan to come back. On this trip to the far west, she unexpectedly saw Jing Xingji, and sure enough, he formed his nascent soul. She naturally wanted to call Jing Xingji back to Gujian sect. Unfortunately, Jing Xingji's experiences in the past 100 years made her lose her sense of belonging to the sect, and she didn't want to go back. With a sigh, venerated swordsman Yuanying said, "Fuling bullied and humiliated you like that, so I don't blame you for not wanting to go back to the sect." Jing Xingji wanted to say something but hesitated. His experiences in Gujian sect had nothing to do with venerated swordsman Yuanying. He really wanted to say a few words, but he was afraid that venerated swordsman Yuanying would misunderstand, so he could only keep his mouth shut. "Forget it." Venerated swordsman Yuanying regained his composure and said to Jing Xingji, "As the head Grand Supreme Elder of Gujian sect, I have the responsibility to protect my disciples. I'm also responsible for the injustice you encountered. Since you don't want to go back to Gujian sect, I'll give you a fated chance to compensate for your 100 years of grievance." Jing Xingji was stunned and stared blankly at venerated swordsman Yuanying. He didn't expect that venerated swordsman Yuanying not only didn't blame him for his unwillingness to go back to Gujian sect, but also wanted to compensate him. He lowered his head and felt that the unfair experiences in the past 100 years were nothing to him. Those cold eyes, those rumors. At least now, the person he respected the most in Gujian sect knew about the injustice he had suffered. Venerated swordsman Yuanying opened his hand, and a small flying sword appeared in his palm. He said, "This flying sword is a keepsake of a senior in my sect. This senior's divine power is amazing, and his comprehension of the sword far surpasses ours. I once promised him one thing, and in return, he's willing to pass on his lifetime comprehension to the person who holds the keepsake. You just need to follow the clues to find him. With a raise of his hand, the small flying sword gently flew in front of Jing Xingji. At the same time, venerated swordsman Yuanying secretly transmitted his voice to Jing Xingji, giving him the clues. After doing all this, venerated swordsman Yuanying said, I'm going back to Gujian sect. If you want to come back one day, Gujian sect's gate will always be open for you. Once he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Jing Xingji to express his gratitude. With a flick of his sleeve, he stepped onto the flying sword and turned into a sword light, disappearing into the sky. Holding the small flying sword, Jing Xingji stared blankly at the place where venerated swordsman Yuanying disappeared, remaining silent for a long time. Hey, old man Yuanying is still as good at buying people's hearts as before. Lord Taoist Jinghe's voice broke the silence. He cast a sidelong glance at Jing Xingji. Brat, if you want to go back, no one's stopping you. Jing Xingji's hot blood was splashed clean. He said somewhat angrily out of shame. Senior Jinghe, didn't you just urge me to go back to the sect? Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, I just can't stand old man Yuanying putting on an act. Senior, Jing Xingji protested. She dared to bet that Lord Taoist Jinghe was in a bad mood, because Jing Xingji stole his limelight. Who told venerated swordsman Yuanying to make Jing Xingji commit suicide with just a few words? Sure enough, when she turned around, Qin also smiled without saying anything. With a flash of light, the small flying sword in Jing Xingji's hand was put into his Qingquan ring. He was thinking that after this matter was over, he would go look for fated chances. Since venerated swordsman Yuanying said fated chances, it must be a great fated chance. Jing Xingji never doubted that fated chances were fake. If it were someone else, Jing Xingji would have doubted their motives. But this person was venerated swordsman Yuanying. His character could be testified by anyone. After a while, the flight lights crisscrossed. These nascent soul cultivators, either in groups or alone, left Fengsha City. Lord Taoist Jinghe said, Bian and Ding Luan will stay behind to clean up the situation. When we report to the Immortal Alliance, they'll send a group of cultivators to guard this place. You found a lot of materials for the Immortal Alliance, so you must be rewarded. The latter part of his sentence was directed at Mo Tiange and Qin Shi. This task was originally Huaziki and Zhong Xi's responsibility, but unexpectedly, the two of them died. Instead, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi, who happened to come to the far west, completed the task. For the Immortal Alliance fighting on both sides, this secret storehouse was just the right time. After the Immortal Alliance was established, it naturally had to mobilize resources and build a storehouse to supply the materials needed for the war. Each cultivation group couldn't always be responsible for it themselves. Any organization without financial power could easily become an empty shell. However, the members of the Immortal Alliance were the most complicated in the history of the Celestial Pole. Whether they were big cultivation groups or small individual cultivators, all the cultivators in the Celestial Pole were under the jurisdiction of the Immortal Alliance. As a result, how to build this storehouse, where to mobilize resources, and how much each cultivation group had to contribute became thorny issues. Because of this matter, the elders in Kuanzhong City quarreled countless times. At this time, the treasure map in the far west, which they originally didn't have high hopes for, unexpectedly found the secret storehouse of a big ancient cultivation group, and the problem was solved. This secret storehouse was too big. If they had to divide it, who should divide it? Who should divide it? Who should divide it? Who should divide it? These were all problems. If they didn't handle it well, there would be conflicts within the Immortal Alliance. It would be better to directly fill it into the Immortal Alliance's storehouse. This way, each force wouldn't have to rack their brains to shirk responsibility, and they wouldn't have to quarrel over the distribution of resources. The most important thing was that this secret storehouse was more valuable than any cultivation group's storehouse. In this way, the position of the Immortal Alliance would be firmly stabilized. Of course, there must be follow-up ways to make money, but this was a matter for the future. Mo Tiange said, What reward? A spirit-controlling magic weapon? In your dreams. Lord Taoist Jinghe glared at her, then said carelessly, It's probably just picking a few things from the storehouse. He had already seen this storehouse. There weren't any amazing magic weapons, but most of them were materials. Although it was rare, it wasn't enough to make him envious. In that case, Master will take it on your behalf. Lord Taoist Jinghe glanced at her and asked, You don't plan to go to the Immortal Alliance? Master, I haven't completed my goal yet. I don't have much time. All right. Lord Taoist Jinghe thought for a while, then said, Master will take care of this matter for you. However, now that the Immortal Alliance has been established, we need a lot of manpower to fight on two fronts. Our Xianqing school has 8 nascent soul cultivators, so it's not a big deal to lose 2 of you. However, we can't always let other people take care of this matter. When this matter is over, you have to replace them. Yes, Emotianga and Qinshi answered. Qinshi didn't mind, but Emotianga knew that aside from taking care of the chores in Clear Spring Peak, she almost never contributed to the school. If it was during normal times, she could naturally enjoy the school's offerings. But now was a troubled time. It wouldn't be right if she didn't contribute to the school. If there's no result in the end, you don't have to be afraid. Lord Taoist Jinghe looked at Emotianga and said, Yuanying Bayan, and those other old guys all have some friendship with me. When the time comes, we the late nascent soul cultivators gather together. I don't believe we can't solve your problem. Emotianga was touched. Ever since she worshipped her master, he did too many things for her. But she did very little for him. If there was a need in the future, she would definitely go through water and tread on fire for her master. All right. Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand, turning the pavilion back into a cloud carriage. Master's going back to Kunwu. If there's nothing else, come back early. Without waiting for their answer, he waved his hand and disappeared into the horizon on the cloud carriage. When Lord Taoist Jinghe's figure disappeared, there were no other nascent soul cultivators around. The 4 of them looked at each other. Emotianga took the initiative to speak. What about you? Nie Wushang said. I'm going back to Yunzhong. These days, I've been thinking that my master probably has some means to know my position. So he came looking for me as soon as I returned to the celestial pole. Now that he's seriously injured, it's a good opportunity for me. I have to take advantage of this time to improve my cultivation level. But don't you have a cultivation technique? Emotianga asked. Nie Wushang smiled bitterly. Unless my master is willing to pass me a cultivation technique, where else can I get one? Fortunately, I'm already in the nascent soul realm. At worst, I can just slowly explore and create my own cultivation technique. Even so, how could it be easy to create one's own cultivation technique? That won't be necessary. Qinshi took out a Qianquan bag and handed it to her. As I expected, this thing is related to your cultivation technique. Nie Wushang took it, touched the Qianquan bag, and was stunned to find it was a stone tablet. Emotianga knew what he took out must be Mei Feng's primordial devil stone tablet. So she said, This is a devil cultivator's item. It's useless to us, so you should keep it. Nie Wushang nodded and smiled. Okay. She wouldn't thank him with words, so she would repay him if she had the chance in the future. What about you? Emotianga turned to Jingxingji. Jingxingji said, In any case, I have nothing to do. I'll go look for the fated chance Martial Uncle Yuanying gave me. Emotianga curled her lips. This guy. He's only willing to call me Martial Uncle now that venerable swordsman Yuanying isn't here. Do you have something important to do? Jingxingji looked at the 2 of them. When Lord Taoist Jinghe said he wanted to gather late-stage nascent soul cultivators in the celestial pole, they knew Emotianga encountered a very serious problem. Qinshi nodded and sighed. Do you need our help? Jingxingji said matter-of-factly. Nie Wushang also didn't object. This matter can't be solved with more people. Qinshi shook his head. You guys go. Okay, call me if you need anything. Jingxingji took out a jade talisman, cut a sliver of his divine sense, put it inside and threw it to them. I'm leaving. Without saying any nonsense, Jingxingji flew away on his sword. Nie Wushang did the same thing, and passed the 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman to them. I'm also leaving. 100 years is still too short. We'll meet again someday, Emotinga said sincerely. Nia Wushang smiled and nodded. She also didn't say any nonsense and turned into a black flight light, flying far away. Chapter 563. After everyone left, Qinshi asked, "Do you have an idea?" Emotinga took out the soul bead Lord Taoist Jinghe threw at her, and said with a smile, "I just thought of it." Qinshi stared at the gloomy soul bead in confusion. "What's the use of this?" Emotinga said, "All the traps and formations in the passageways outside the storehouse have been cracked. Logically speaking, Xiao Xilan's group must have come to the storehouse. However, there are no traces of them in the storeroom. There are only two possibilities. One is that they left the storeroom safely and went somewhere else. The other is that they disappeared in the storeroom." Qinshi pondered for a moment and immediately understood. "Ghost City." "You're right." Emotinga stared at the soul bead. From time to time, several evil ghost faces protruded from the surface of the bead. They looked terrifying, but they couldn't break free from the soul bead's shackles. There are dozens of ghost cultivators in the nascent soul realm, and Ghost City has been built here for at least 10,000 years. They definitely know where Xiao Xilan went. How many nascent soul stage ghost cultivators are we going to find? The others had left, but Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Wan were still in the sacrificial temple, waiting for the people from the Immortal Alliance to arrive. They could go and contact them now. Presumably, Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Wan would show them some respect. Emotinga shook her head. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. There are many souls in this soul bead. Perhaps they know." After saying that, she loosened her grip, and the soul bead floated in midair. "I'll extract the soul. You stand guard." Qinshi nodded. With a wave of his hand, the red sword light split into countless sword lights, turning into a curtain wall that surrounded him. At the same time he retreated slightly, just in case. Originally, even nascent soul cultivators couldn't touch soul objects. However, Emotinga had a soul bead, so she could borrow its power and use it a little. Emotinga made dazzling hand seals with both hands, then gathered her aura and focused her mind. A wisp of pure spiritual aura condensed on her fingertips and pointed at the soul bead. On the surface of the soul bead, the gray barrier of light was suddenly broken. Countless souls squeezed into this small crack, pushing against each other and squeezing out of shape. Finally, a soul popped its head out and squeezed out from the damaged area with great difficulty. Emotinga immediately waved her hand, drawing the other gray specks of light to this area and blocking the hole. The soul that was squeezed out was a middle-aged man with a sluggish and stiff face. Looking at his appearance, Emotinga felt he didn't seem to have any spiritual intelligence. Even so, she still asked, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The middle-aged man turned his head in a daze and did not answer. Emotinga asked again, "Who are you? State your name." The soul still did not answer. Could it be that it had already lost its intelligence? It was highly possible that this soul pearl could restrain souls, or perhaps it could even refine souls. After thinking for a while, she patiently asked again, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The soul kept turning its head and finally stopped. Am I out?" His voice was stiff with a hint of disbelief. It was good that it still had spiritual intelligence. Emotinga heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Yes, you've come out of the soul bead." "Ah." Although her voice was stiff, Emotinga could still hear the joy in his voice. She didn't know how long this person had been trapped in the soul pearl. Maybe he was trapped inside after he died. After a long time, the soul calmed down and bowed. "Senior, thank you for giving me a new life. With this, I can enter the cycle of reincarnation again." Emotinga said, "There's no hurry. I have something to ask you." "Yes, Senior. Junior will tell you everything I know," the soul said respectfully. After a while, he had finally adapted to his current state, and was no longer as stiff as before. Emotinga was very satisfied with his attitude and asked, "From what you said, you were a cultivator? May I know your identity and where did you come from?" The soul said, Yes, Junior is a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect. I used to be in the core formation realm. After I fell on Demonic Mountain, my obsession didn't disperse. Later, for some reason, I was sucked into this thing, and was trapped until now. The Seven Mysteries sect? The two of them had strange expressions. They had heard of the Seven Mysteries sect, but it was a sect from tens of thousands of years ago, and had long disappeared. The current 7 great sects were passed down through tens of thousands of years of trials. There were also countless sects that used to be extremely prosperous, but gradually declined until they disappeared. The Seven Mysteries sect was one of them. In the history of the Celestial Pole, the Seven Mysteries sect flourished 50,000 years ago, and then gradually declined until its inheritance was severed 30,000 years ago. This soul was a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect, a cultivator from at least 30,000 years ago. Seniors, could it be that you and the Seven Mysteries sect? Emotienga waved her hand and said, "We don't have any disputes with the Seven Mysteries sect. It's just that the Seven Mysteries sect has disappeared." Disappeared? The voice suddenly rose. The soul was extremely surprised. How could it disappear? The Seven Mysteries sect is a famous cultivation group in the Celestial Pole, with many nascent soul elders. Emotienga said, "Since there's life, there's death. The Seven Mysteries sect disappeared 30,000 years ago." 30,000 years? The soul murmured. So it has already been 30,000 years. He suddenly turned his head, looked towards the east and shouted, "Master, disciple could not complete the task. I will never see you again." The stiff voice sounded a little sad. After a while the soul calmed down and bowed. "Senior, please ask." Emotinga nodded and asked, "What is this soul bead?" The soul answered, "To be honest, Junior also doesn't know what this bead is. Junior only knows that it was born in the Ghost City realm, and will automatically absorb some souls." The Ghost City realm? It's the place where the Ghost City is connected to the outside world, the soul explained. Junior learned from other souls that many souls entered the Ghost City through this place. But for some reason, they were all absorbed by this bead. That's how it came to be. Oh, Emotinga's mind raced and she asked, "Then let me ask you, several thousand years ago, was there a group of cultivators who came to the Ghost City realm?" The soul was at a loss. Several thousand years ago, he had been in the soul bead for a long time. Seeing that he didn't know anything, Emotinga said, "It was a group of nascent soul cultivators." "Ah," the soul said, "I remember. I don't know how long ago, there was a nascent soul cultivator who broke into the Ghost City and ran into the Ghost Gate. He was killed by more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators, and his soul was also absorbed by this bead." The two of them were overjoyed. Emotinga asked, "What was the lineup of that group of cultivators? Was there a woman among them?" The soul said, "It seemed to be 5 people, and there was indeed a female cultivator among them." "What was her name?" The soul shook his head. "There are more than 10 million souls in this soul bead. Junior doesn't know." Emotinga felt relieved. It didn't matter if she didn't know her name. If Xiao Xilan's soul was really in this bead, she could always find it. "Thank you." Emotinga glanced at Qinshi. Qinshi nodded, and withdrew the sword light around him. "You can go." The soul bowed and said, "Thank you, Senior." Then it disappeared with the wind. Since he was free from the soul bead, he could enter samsara again, as long as he dispersed his obsession. If his obsession was still there, he could also become a ghost cultivator instead of being trapped inside, unable to live or die. The sword light surrounded him again. Emotinga did the same thing and released another soul. This time, her luck wasn't good. Maybe it was because she was trapped for too long, but this soul already lost its spiritual wisdom and became a wandering soul. Helpless, Emotinga could only let it go. After doing this several times, she finally released another soul with spiritual wisdom. This soul didn't have any impression of this matter. The jade rabbit rose and the golden crow fell. Day and night changed. On the second day, another soul finally had an impression of this matter, confirming what the first soul said. Emotinga felt a little relieved. Since this matter was true, She could definitely find Xiao Xilan after searching all the souls in the soul bead. It took a lot of time to try tens of thousands of souls one by one, but they had enough patience. First, cultivators like them had to meditate for a very long time each time. Once they entered closed-door meditation, they might even enter closed-door meditation for more than 100 years, so they'd long been very patient. Second, this matter was related to their lives. Now that hope was right in front of them, how could they not be patient? Questioning the souls, resting and questioning again. Several days passed, and Emotienga became more and more excited. As more and more souls confirmed this news, the souls in the soul bead became fewer and fewer, and the possibility of finding Xiao Xilan became higher and higher. When she released the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilan, she finally confirmed this matter. Emotienga didn't continue immediately after letting this soul go with the wind. Instead, she put away the soul bead, picked up a stone and sat down. Upon seeing this, Qingxi withdrew his sword light and sat next to her. "What's wrong?" Emotienga's fingers trembled a little as she said, "I hope I wasn't happy for nothing." Although she didn't start this matter until she reached the nascent soul realm, she often thought about this matter in the past 100 years. After all, there was a restriction in her mind, just like there was a sword hanging over her head. Once the silk rope tied to the sword broke, her little life would be over. She had outstanding qualifications, many treasures in her hands, and a bright future ahead of her. How could she be willing to let her fate be controlled by others? Every time she thought about this matter, she wanted to tear Wanderer Ziwei's corpse into 1,000 pieces. Unfortunately, the corpse of the other party was long gone. The wisp of divine sense that was left behind was going to disappear sooner or later. That won't happen. Qingxi was much calmer. In the past few days, we can be sure Xiao Xilan is inside. Emotienga also knew the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilan had been found. As long as Xiao Xilan didn't lose her consciousness, she was inside. It was just that this matter was too important, so she was a bit worried. After resting for a while, the two of them stood up again and began to extract the soul. Emotienga tore open the surface of the soul bead and muttered in her heart, "Senior Xiao Xilan, you mustn't lose your consciousness. The person who shared your pillow with you as deep as the sea is actually the enemy who destroyed your family. You can't take revenge, and you can't stay with your lover. With such an obsession, you won't lose your consciousness and become a wandering soul, right?" As she thought about this, another soul broke free from the soul bead and appeared in front of her. It was a young and beautiful woman wearing a plain white dress. Although it was only a soul, her spiritual aura was still threatening. "Who are you? Tell me your name." The soul looked up and quickly adapted to her condition. "Xiao Xilan thanks fellow Taoist for giving me a second life." Emotienga was stunned, but soon she was overjoyed and asked, "You're Xiao Xilan? Xuanji School Xiao Xilan?" Chapter 564. Xiao Xilan was stunned. She'd been trapped for thousands of years, so she was a bit unfamiliar with people. After a while, she asked tentatively, "Fellow Taoist, you are?" "I'm a cultivator from Xianqing School." "Oh." Xiao Xilan nodded. "Fellow Taoist, you're so young. You must have formed your nascent soul recently, right? I've never heard of such a young fellow nascent soul cultivator from Xianqing School." Xiao Xilan's expression had always been calm. Although she was only a soul, her bearing was still extraordinary. Emotienga praised him inwardly. No wonder Wanderer Ziwei still couldn't forget him. "Senior Xiao, you don't know, but 5,000 years have passed. This world isn't the one you're familiar with." Xiao Xilan was stunned and didn't regain her composure for a long time. Then, "Senior has been trapped in this soul bead for 5,000 years. 5,000 years, Xiao Xilan murmured. 5,000 years. Upon seeing her expression, Emotienga frowned. "Senior." She was afraid Xiao Xilan would lose control after learning the world had changed. Xiao Xilan quickly put away her sadness. "Thank you for saving me, fellow Taoist. May I ask how Xuanji School is now?" Emotienga paused for a moment then said, "Xuanji School declined not long after Senior fell." This time, Xiao Xilan just closed her eyes and sighed. Knowing that 5,000 years had passed, She already guessed that Xuanji School no longer existed. Xuanji School's foundation was too shallow. Once she fell, even if they weren't destroyed by others, they would have ended up in internal strife. Xiao Xilan quickly composed herself and asked, "Fellow Taoist, may I ask how you know about my origin?" Mo Tiange smiled and said frankly, "We came to look for you." Ah, Xiao Xilan was surprised again. Then she heard an even more surprised sentence. "Senior Xiao, do you remember the name Su Jiwei?" Xiao Xilan was speechless, as if she had been hit by a heavy punch. Seeing her like this, Mo Tiange knew she also had deep feelings for Wanderer Ziwei. But fate made fools of people, she sighed softly and said. "I was entrusted by Wanderer Ziwei to look for Senior Xiao." After a while, Xiao Xilan's expression slowly calmed down. She smiled bitterly and said, "Wanderer Ziwei. Does he really think he's in Wanderer just because he left the school? Su Jiwei, can you pretend nothing happened just because you don't face it? There is no medicine for regret in this world, and you can't turn back time." She spoke each word calmly, but both of them could hear the sorrow in her voice. There were many sad things in this world, but the most sorrowful was the hopeless parting. Knowing that the other person was still alive in this world, knowing that they loved each other, yet they could not be together. Neither Mo Tiange nor Qin Shi interrupted her until she asked again, "Su Jiwei, 5,000 years have passed, so he can't still be alive. Could he have advanced to the deification realm?" Mo Tiange smiled and said, "In Senior Zhao's opinion, how high is the possibility of Senior Ziwei advancing to the deification realm?" Xiao Xilan said without the slightest hesitation, "With his talent and temperament, it wouldn't be strange if he reached the deification stage. However, if he had really reached the soul formation stage, he would have personally come to find me." Mo Tiange sighed. "Senior has a deep understanding of Senior Ziwei. He indeed hasn't reached the deification realm." Xiao Xilan smiled bitterly. "We've been husband and wife for 200 years. How could I not know his temperament? Since he asked fellow Taoists to find me, he must have encountered something that he couldn't do anything about. Yes, Senior Ziwei once took a step into the deification realm, but unfortunately, he failed in the end. After he died, his divine sense was sealed." Mo Tiange briefly explained what happened. Of course, she didn't mention the restriction placed on her. Xiao Xilan was silent after listening to her story. Although she could forcibly bring her soul back, Mo Tiange didn't want to force her. She said, "Senior Xiao, no matter what grudges you had between the two of you, it's all in the past. Now one of you only has divine sense, and the other only has a soul. Before long, both of you will disappear, so what grudges can't be resolved? Once your memories dissipate, you'll be strangers in your next life." Xiao Xilan felt like she was struck by lightning. She murmured, "Strangers." Mo Tiange didn't speak again. Although it was painful not to be together, at least they knew that the person they loved still existed in this world, and that the other person also missed them. Therefore, even if they could never be together, they still had the happiness of being alone. But if they became strangers, the only warmth left in their hearts would also be gone. For people like them who had love in their hearts, this was the most unbearable thing. Xiao Xilan didn't say anything. In this short period of time, she remembered a lot of things. Although there were thousands of souls inside the soul pearl, most of them were wandering souls. There were only a few souls that retained their memories. The reason these souls could retain their memories was because they had obsessions and didn't want their memories to be erased. Even so, as time passed, the soul's spiritual wisdom would slowly dissipate until they became wandering souls. Obsessions weren't unchanging. As time passed, obsessions would also slowly fade away. She was the only one who retained her spiritual wisdom during these 5,000 years and didn't dissipate at all, because her obsessions were engraved deeper than anyone else's. Not to mention 50 million years. Even if it was 10,000 years or 100,000 years, she knew that she absolutely wouldn't forget it. She looked at Qin Shi. "Let's go." Qin Shi nodded and took the sword light back into his body. The two of them turned into flight lights and flew towards Jin. *****. 2 days later, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi landed on a cliff outside Wind Breath Valley. Compared to 100 years ago, the fog in Wind Breath Valley seemed to be thicker. They stood on the cliff and saw the fog surging around their feet like waves. Mo Tiange frowned and said, "It's a bit strange." Qin Shi nodded. "And this fog doesn't seem to be natural." As soon as he finished speaking, the two of them looked at each other and looked up at the same time with strange expressions. A sword light appeared in their field of vision. It hovered in the sky a few times then fell down. The flight light dispersed. When they saw the person's face, the three of them were shocked and shouted, "It's you!" The person who fell on the sword light was actually Jing Xingji. The three of them looked at each other. After a long time, Qin Shi asked, "What are you doing here?" Jing Xingji said, "I'm looking for fated chances. What about you?" He suddenly took a step back vigilantly. "Don't tell me you also know." Before he could finish, Mo Tiange rolled her eyes at him. "If I want to rob you, I'll have plenty of chances." Jing Xingji thought it was reasonable. Fated chances for sword cultivators weren't very useful to them. "Then what are you doing here?" Qin Shi said, "If I'm not mistaken, our goals are the same." Jing Xingji was stunned and stepped back again. Qin Shi was also annoyed. "Do you really want us to rob you?" Mo Tiange also understood. She said in surprise, "What a coincidence. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here?" Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said she once promised a senior of Gujian sect something. In return, that senior gave his junior a fated chance. Someone who could be called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had to be at least in the nascent soul realm, and was older than Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. Wasn't Wanderer Ziwei such a person? He was a cultivator of Gujian sect 5,000 years ago, with amazing divine powers. He was definitely worthy of being called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. It seemed that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here in the past 100 years, and promised Wanderer Ziwei to help him find Xiao Xilan. Wanderer Ziwei, on the other hand, gave his token and promised to give his junior a fated chance, because they were both from Gujian sect. What's going on? Jing Xingji was bewildered. The person we're looking for is a senior of Gujian sect, Mo Tiange said. This is the important matter I mentioned a few days ago. Ha! Jing Xingji was confused. Mo Tiange was about to explain in detail when she suddenly saw the fog in Wind Rest Valley parting. Someone came up. Chapter 565. Mo Tiange was extremely astonished. How could there be people in Wind's Rest Valley? Although Wanderer Ziwei only had a wisp of his divine sense left, the great formation he left behind was extremely powerful. So there shouldn't be anyone who could occupy Fengxi Valley, right? With that thought in mind, the newcomer quickly flew over. Not one person, but a group of people. Under the leadership of a core formation female cultivator, 8 foundation building female disciples flew up on a huge flying sword. The 3 of them stared at the 9 people without blinking. Upon seeing them, the core formation female cultivator looked astonished. Her gaze swept past Jing Xingji then Qin Shi before finally settling on Mo Tiange. "Little sister Yi?" What she said was a question. Startled, Mo Tiange stared at the woman up and down. She was about 30 years old, and had a gentle countenance. Although she was charming, she was also proud and aloof. She hesitantly asked, "Sister Shang?" The female cultivator arched her eyebrows and smiled. "It's me." Mo Tiange was shocked. Shang Ruwan's current appearance was poles apart from how she looked back then. It wasn't her appearance that was different. It was her bearing that was different. Back then, Shang Ruwan was gentle and generous. But under the gentle appearance of the current Shang Ruwan was a sharp sword aura. Upon seeing the sword on her back, Mo Tiange blurted out, You obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance?" Shang Ruwan nodded softly. "This is a fated chance younger sister left for me. If it wasn't for younger sister's kindness, I'm afraid I would have lost my life long ago. How could I have become master's disciple then?" Although she was only in the core formation realm, Mo Tiange was already in the nascent soul realm. But Mo Tiange still called Mo Tiange little sister, with a calm expression. There wasn't the slightest trace of uneasiness. Upon seeing this, not only did Mo Tiange not feel offended by Shang Ruwan's behavior, She even sighed with emotion. Shang Ruwan's temperament had once again improved compared to back then. Even when she saw a nascent soul cultivator, she was still calm and collected. She could even converse like she did back then. But Shang Ruwan chuckled again. No matter what, he can't compare to younger sister. In just over 100 years, he managed to advance from the foundation-building realm to the nascent soul realm. He's truly a first-class genius in the celestial pole. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't dare to believe it. Sister Shang isn't bad either. Back then, she was only in the early stage of foundation establishment. Now she's already in the middle stage of core formation. This kind of speed naturally couldn't compare to hers, but it wasn't inferior to Xianqing School's elite disciples. Shang Ruwan chuckled. It's fine if it's other people, but younger sister praising me like this, it really makes me feel ashamed. Emo Tinga smiled. When Emo Tinga saw Shang Ruwan again, she exclaimed in her heart. Back then, when she left Shang Ruwan in Ziwei's Immortal's cave, she occasionally thought about Shang Ruwan and wondered if Shang Ruwan survived. She never expected that not only did Shang Ruwan survive, but she also obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance. Although Shang Ruwan was only in the core formation realm now, with her temperament and Wanderer Ziwei's swordsmanship, advancing to the nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Shang Ruwan paused for a moment. Her gaze then fell on Qin Shi and Jing Xingji. These two are. Oh, Emo Tinga said. This is fellow Taoist Jing Xingji from Gujian sect. Shang Ruwan's eyes brightened. Right after that, she bowed and said, Greetings to Senior Jing. Wanderer Ziwei came from Gujian sect, so she could also be considered a successor of Gujian sect. In this way, she and Jing Xingji could be considered fellow disciples. Now that he knew Shang Ruwan was that senior successor, Jing Xingji stopped being careless and politely returned her greeting. What about this one? Shang Ruwan looked at Qin Shi with a smile. She had a passionate past, so how could she not see that the relationship between the two of them wasn't ordinary? Although they didn't act intimately, there was a tacit understanding and closeness between their actions. They seemed very natural. This is my senior martial brother, and also my Dao companion. We're from the same sect. His surname is Qin, and his Taoist name is Shoujing, Emo Tinga said calmly. A hint of astonishment flitted across Shang Ruwan's face. So senior is Xianqing School's Qin Shoujing. Her gaze then shifted to Emo Tinga. With a meaningful look, she said, I suddenly remembered a rumor. Under Lord Taoist Jinghe of Xianqing School, there were two genius cultivators. One was a junior in the clan, Qin Shoujing, and the other was his last disciple, Emo Qingwei. I wonder. Emo Tinga blushed with shame. I didn't tell you the truth back then. Big sister Shang, please don't blame me. Shang Ruwan laughed. How could I dare blame you? Younger sister is now a famous top-notch cultivator in the celestial pole. Me calling you younger sister already means I'm climbing the social ladder. Emo Tinga smiled but said nothing. Shang Ruwan then said with a stern expression, You're here to see my master, right? Yes, Emo Tinga answered. Elder sister Shang, please inform him that I've fulfilled our previous agreement and requested to see Senior Ziwei. Oh, Shang Ruwan was surprised but also happy. Did you find master's wife? You can say so, Emo Tinga answered. Their agreement was to find Xiao Xilan's remains and bury her together with Wanderer Ziwei. However, Xiao Xilan died in the realm of Ghost City 5,000 years ago, so Emo Tinga really didn't have the ability to find her remains. Fortunately, she found Xiao Xilan's soul, so they should be considered to have fulfilled their agreement. Shang Ruwan nodded. Without saying anything unnecessary, she stepped aside and said, Master ordered us to see him directly if it's about this matter. This way, please. The three of them got on the huge sword. Shang Ruwan controlled the flying sword and descended to the bottom of the valley. When Emo Tinga came down from the sword and saw the scene in the valley, she was astonished. Elder sister Shang, this is inside Wind Rest Valley. People were coming and going. Some were practicing swordsmanship, some were planting spiritual plants, some were handling game, and some were teaching children how to read. After taking a closer look, They saw a circle of stone houses built along the bottom of the valley. The scale of the houses was no different from that of a small cultivation group. Shang Ruan watched the scene in front of her with a smile. Back then, Master once saved a clan of mortals, and they lived here for 1,000 years. After Master passed away, those mortals moved out of Wind Rest Valley. After I advanced to the core formation realm, Master ordered me to break the Great Formation here and lay a new defensive formation here. That way, Wind Rest Valley would still be a paradise, and those mortals would return. I decided to accept disciples here, and I was lucky enough to teach a few disciples. I see. It was no wonder when they came down, there was only fog and no gales. The three of them followed Shang Ruan to Xiao Xilan's statue. After the several foundation-building female disciples activated the mechanism, they excused themselves. Please. Shang Ruan raised her hand, then took the lead and entered the cave. This Ziwei's Immortals cave was very different from before. The walls were inlaid with moonstones, and the floor was spotless. Under Shang Ruan's lead, the three of them passed through the hall, walked through the stone path, and arrived at the hall where the 5 Elements platform was located. Shang Ruan made a hand seal. Then a stone platform quietly moved over. After the 4 of them got on it, the stone platform slowly and steadily flew towards the exit. After leaving the 5 Elements platform, the passage of corpses and bones also disappeared. Under the illumination of the Mother Moonstone, the 4 of them smoothly arrived at the stone room, where Wanderer Ziwei resided. Please wait a moment. Shang Ruan took a few steps forward, clasped her hands and closed her eyes. It was unclear what kind of spell she was casting. A moment later, a tired voice rang out inside the stone room. Disciple, why did you wake me up? Shang Ruan said respectfully. Master, the person you've been waiting for is here. The person I've been waiting for. Wanderer Ziwei paused for a moment, then suddenly said in shock. You, little girl, you've actually formed your nascent soul. Mo Tiange smiled, then took a step forward. Senior, long time no see. Heh. Wanderer Ziwei was somewhat speechless. He said with disappointment and frustration. Sure enough, the new generation replaces the old. Disciple, how many years has it been? Master, it's been 152 years since we entered the valley. 152 years. Wanderer Ziwei exclaimed. Little girl, you're not 200 years old yet, right? Yes, Junior is 189 years old now. 189. Wanderer Ziwei murmured. When did such a genius appear in the celestial pole? Mo Tiange wasn't complacent at all. She just said indifferently, what's the use of being a genius under the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei couldn't help but laugh. Little girl, you're quite ambitious. Mo Tiange smiled and said, Junior still has more than 1,000 years of lifespan left. If Junior doesn't want to advance to the deification realm, that would be too lacking in ambition. Well said. How can cultivators like us not have the ambition to advance to the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei raised his voice. Disciple, you have to remember this. Shang Ruan smiled bitterly. Master, disciple is 250 years old now, but I'm only in the middle stage of the core formation realm. I can't compare to little sister Yi. Hey, how can you be so unduly humble? Although you started late, advancing to the nascent soul realm in 100 years isn't a problem. When I advanced to the nascent soul realm, I was 300 years old. If my luck wasn't bad, I would have advanced to the deification realm already. Shang Ruan knew her master's temperament, so she could only say, yes, master. Disciple will work hard. That's more like it. Wanderer Ziwei was satisfied. He paused for a moment, then said, Little girl, who are these 2 people to you? Oh, one of them is a sword cultivator. Jing Xingji took a step forward, then bowed. Gujian Sect's Jing Xingji greets Senior. The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled. This guy, he said he didn't want to be bound by the sect anymore. But now, didn't he still consider himself a cultivator of Gujian Sect? You're a disciple of Gujian Sect? Wanderer Ziwei said happily. Why didn't Yuan Ying mention there was a junior with such potential in Gujian Sect? Jing Xingji was silent for a moment, then said, I don't dare to deceive Senior. Junior left Gujian Sect 100 years ago. Huh. Wanderer Ziwei was dumbfounded, then said angrily, Humph! What did Yuanying do? She actually expelled you from the sect. Jing Xingji was startled. He hastily took out the small flying sword venerable swordsman Yuanying gave him and said, Senior, Junior left Gujian sect, which has nothing to do with martial uncle Yuanying. Martial uncle also gave Junior the fated chance Senior promised. This is the keepsake. Oh. Wanderer Ziwei's divine sense circled the small flying sword, then he said, This is indeed my keepsake without a doubt. Does that mean you plan to return to Gujian sect? Junior doesn't plan to. You don't plan to return to Gujian sect. Wanderer Ziwei said, My secret teachings won't be passed on to cultivators outside of Gujian sect. If you don't return to Gujian sect, it's useless even if you bring this keepsake. Jing Xingji lowered his head and said nothing. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Wanderer Ziwei said, Think about it first. Tell me your decision later. He then said to Emotienga, Little girl you, what's your name again? Emotienga was speechless for a while, then answered, Junior's Taoist name is Qingwei. There's still several decades to go. Why did you come back so early? Do you expect me to lift your restriction out of a moment of kindness? Upon hearing Wanderer Ziwei's matter-of-fact words, Emotienga smiled. Senior, don't tell me it never occurred to you that Junior completed the task you entrusted to me? Wanderer Ziwei paused for a moment. Realizing what she said, he hurriedly said, You said you completed. Emotienga muttered, Not really. Junior couldn't find Senior Xiao Xilan's remains, but I found her soul lingering in the human world. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.